Chapter 2660. Could it be that Vanessa gave him the magic scroll? Miles. Vanessa rushed over, and her expression changed when she saw his spear at the other party's neck. I know you won't give up. Miles was a narrow-minded person. When she saw Miles looking for an excuse to leave the team, she kept an eye on him. As expected, Miles kept his spear, smiled, and said, I'm here to thank him for taking us in last night. Your way of thanking someone is to put the tip of your spear at their neck? Miles shrugged and said, I'm just testing his combat power. He doesn't seem very strong. Since you want to thank him, there must be a gift. Have you given him a gift? The others are waiting for us to return. Vanessa was unhappy. Annoyance flashed across her eyes. This kind of suitor was the most annoying. They had nothing to do with each other, but this person acted as if she was his. What was the point of being with this kind of person? He was narrow-minded and had no tolerance as a man. Miles took out a few purple coins from his belt and threw them at Augustine's feet. Thank you for taking us in last night. You. Anger flashed across Vanessa's face, but she also knew that if she continued to side with him, Miles would keep targeting her. It wasn't suitable for her to keep pestering him. All right, let's go. Vanessa didn't look at Augustine and left with Miles. Augustine almost thought he was dead. He was about to summon the skeletons from the forest, but he didn't realize that his neck was quite stiff. He picked up a few purple coins and thought, together with the purple coins from before, I can buy a level 7 wind-chasing beast magic beast. Awesome. Ning Shu hid behind the tree hole and pursed his lips. That knight had already lost the right to compete. That girl definitely wouldn't accept that knight. However, bullying Augustine like this was unacceptable. Augustine had a big heart, but it didn't mean that he should be bullied. Ning Shu looked for the spatial nodes and made spatial jumps one by one. He had to lock onto that person's position. Ning Shu appeared behind Miles, stretched out her leg, and kicked him in the back. Miles was kicked to the ground by a huge force. He ate a mouthful of mud and looked pathetic. Vanessa looked at him in disdain. She had to hand it to him for walking like this, and he was still a knight. Who is it? Miles looked back, but he didn't see anyone. He felt a chill down his spine and immediately stood up to shake off the dust on his clothes. Don't be so suspicious. Let's go, Vanessa said. Miles felt goosebumps all over his body. He couldn't help but turn his head around. However, he didn't want to appear too careless when there was someone he admired beside him. Ning Shu kicked him in the back again, sending him flying. Poof! Miles landed face first on the ground, his face covered in moss and mud. This. Vanessa was a little confused as well. It was obvious that she would not be able to fall out in such a way. Who is it? What's the point of hiding like a coward? Miles was furious. Hurry up and leave. I think there should be some powerful people around here. I don't want to be disturbed by you. Miles's face was gloomy and uncertain, but he was obviously terrified and immediately fled. Ning Shu's final kick directly kicked him far away. Vanessa was speechless. She didn't know if this person was related to her brother. If so, that would be great. This guy was really pathetic. Vanessa was gloating, but she didn't show it. Ning Shu returned to the tree hole. Augustine was looking for him everywhere. He looked up at a tree and shouted, Vicky, Vicky, where are you? Vicky, Ning Shu appeared. I'm here. Ning Shu felt like a child calling for his mother. Mother, mother, mother. Father, where's mother? This feeling was too scary. The two of them were like conjoined twins. They were already used to each other, deeply used to it. It was no wonder that the person who entrusted him would sacrifice his soul to protect Augustine. I have a few more purple coins. I can buy the magic crystal of the wind-chasing beast, Augustine said excitedly. As for Meyer's insulting actions, Augustine didn't care at all. Ning Shu wiped his face. We're moving now. He was a little afraid that the knight called Miles would come back. Before he had absolute power, Ning Shu didn't dare to expose himself. He would implicate himself and Augustine. Throw away those failed weapons, Augustine said nonchalantly. Ning Shu was speechless. He was so poor, but he still threw away the valuable things. Those weapons weren't actually failures, but to Augustine, a little flaw was a failure. If these things were sold to poor, low-level mercenaries, they would be very popular. He felt that Augustine's understanding of the world was very shallow. If Tao Jing was naive and sweet, then Augustine was just naive and sweet? Nope. He only wanted to be an alchemist. If he was in the family with enough materials and resources, it would bring a qualitative breakthrough to the family. He would be treated like an ancestor. Set up a stall in town and sell these things wholesale. You go sell things, I'll find a place to stay. Ning Shu said. He thought that group of people should still be in town. If he went to sell things, he would definitely bump into them. Okay. Augustine was very obedient and began to collect the things. Ning Shu, forget it. Let's find a place to stay first. Augustine threw away the knife in his hand. The knife cut a hole in the stone on the ground. But the blade was not damaged at all. Damn, was this the legendary ability to cut iron like mud? Throw away this kind of trash? Ning Shu and Augustine wandered around the forest for several days, hoping to find a tree hole like before. They didn't find a tree hole, but they met an injured fire dragon. Ning Shu looked at the dying fire dragon and then at the ignorant Augustine. If Augustine had the protection of a giant dragon, would he be safer? Yes, he should also let Augustine practice peerless martial arts. With the weak body of a mage, he wouldn't be able to last long in battle. When the undead staff was made, there would be unavoidable battles. If Augustine had the strength, he could hold on for a while, plus the protection of the giant dragon. It was not necessary to let the giant dragon protect Augustine for a lifetime, but 20 to 30 years was necessary. A life-saving grace should be repaid with a spring. Ning Shu said to Augustine, "Do you have any potions on you that can treat it?" Augustine looked at the fire dragon that was covered in wounds and bleeding like lava. He leaned close to Ning Shu and whispered, "Vicky, do you really want to save it? I'm afraid you'll be burned by the dragon's breath." Ning Shu, as if you won't be burned. /BK. Chapter 2661. Ning Shu and Augustine hid under a tree and stared at the injured fire dragon not far away. Moreover, there were many magic beasts gathered around the fire dragon. These magic beasts wanted to take advantage of the fire dragon's injury to kill it and divide it among themselves. If the fire dragon was in good condition, these magical beasts would not dare to approach it. However, the fire dragon was not in good condition. If they could eat some of the fire dragon's meat, they might become stronger. These magical beasts believed in the law of the jungle. Even ants could bite an elephant to death. Among these magical beasts, there were wolves and bears. In short, the more powerful magical beasts were gathered here. Generally, the weaker magical beasts, because of their instinctive fear, did not dare to approach the injured fire dragon. Most of these magical beasts were 7 or 8-star magical beasts. Augustine looked at these magical beasts surrounding the injured fire dragon and said in a low voice, "There are so many magical beasts. Even if we want to save it, we can't. Forget it. This is a matter between magical beasts. It's better for us humans not to interfere." Augustine did not know that Ning Shu was planning to kidnap a dragon, so he did not want to save it. Besides, it was useless for him to go. Ning Shu just said, "Wait a little longer." When one's life was hanging by a thread and was saved in a critical moment, he would be more grateful. Augustine said, "You must not rush in. It's very dangerous. You are much more important than the fire dragon." Ning Shu nodded. The blue flames in his eyes flickered as he looked at the battle below. Although the fire dragon could not fly because of its injured wings, its combat power was not to be underestimated. It opened its mouth and spat out dragon breath. The temperature was so high that it could melt stone. However, under the attack of several magical beasts, the fire dragon would not be able to hold on. Moreover, the dragon breath could not be used continuously. Ning Shu said to Augustine, "You leave first. I will bring the fire dragon to you later." Augustine shook his head. "Don't take the risk. How are you going to bring it? Are you going to carry it on your shoulder or lift it? Your body will collapse. Moreover, its blood is corrosive. You are a skeleton. You will be corroded." Ning Shu said, I have an idea. You run first. There are magical beasts fighting here. Most of the magical beasts have already escaped. Be careful, don't let anything happen to you. Augustine had no choice but to slide down the tree trunk and walk away. Those fighting magical beasts didn't pay attention to him at all. He was just an ant running past them, they didn't care at all. Ning Shu watched as the fire dragon struggled to hold on. The fire dragon roared angrily. If it wasn't for those despicable humans' magic scrolls, it wouldn't have been besieged by these small fries. He threw magic scrolls at it as if they were worthless. Despicable humans. Oh! The fire dragon roared in pain. Its body had been scratched by the wolf's claws, and it was in so much pain that its heart ached. Augustine, who had been running, stopped when he heard the roar. He was very worried about Vicky. What was Vicky trying to do? Why did he have to save the dragon? Giant dragons were a very dangerous species. If they were not careful, they could be killed by a single dragon breath. The fire dragon was so angry that it wanted to die. It roared at these demonic beasts, trying to use its bloodline suppression to intimidate these demonic beasts. Low-level demonic beasts would instinctively fear high-level demonic beasts. They were born to be afraid of powerful demonic beasts. This kind of fear would make low-level demonic beasts have no fighting power. They would even be so scared that they would stand still and be slaughtered. This was the bloodline suppression. But as the power of the demonic beasts increased, they would gradually get rid of the bloodline suppression. These demonic beasts that besieged the dragon were the stronger ones in this mountain range. Although the bloodline suppression would have a certain effect, it would not directly scare them to the point where they would lose their fighting power. If the dragon was facing a rabbit, it might scare the rabbit to death with a roar. The fire dragon struggled with all its might. These despicable fellows dared to besiege it while it was injured. If they died this time, it would be fine. But if they didn't die, they would definitely come back and eat these things. Ning Shu sat under the tree and watched as the wounds on the fire dragon's body increased. Hot blood dripped on the ground and corroded the stone. Its movements became clumsy because of the pain from the wounds, and the besieging demonic beasts seemed to see the dawn of victory. One by one, they became more ferocious, specifically choosing the injured areas to attack. Some demonic beasts were even more treacherous and vulnerable. The air was filled with the smell of blood mixed with sulfur and magma. The fire dragon's blood actually had the smell of sulfur. The dragon's breath was magma. This body structure was really a bit amazing. Ning Shu was still waiting. When the fire dragon was at its last breath, he would determine the space node where the fire dragon was and then determine the space node where it escaped to. This speed was very fast. But these demonic beasts were so ferocious. He didn't know if they would chase after him. The fire dragon's roar became weak. It crawled on the ground and struggled to get up, but it couldn't. The power of the magic scroll had not dissipated in its body. Coupled with the attacks of these demonic beasts, it was in a very bad situation. Ning Shu pointed at the fire dragon from afar and wrapped the fire dragon with a barrier. Then he instantly appeared beside the fire dragon. Facing this group of skeletons, all the demonic beasts were stunned for a moment. How did this guy appear? This guy was just a skeleton. The fire dragon's blood dripped onto the water enchantment and sizzled. Ning Shu lifted the enchantment and instantly disappeared. The demonic beasts stared blankly. What's going on? The dragon suddenly disappeared. Where did it disappear to? Several demonic beasts instantly went berserk. Some of the demonic beasts with a keen sense of smell began to sniff the blood. They began to track it from all directions. Ning Shu couldn't jump too far. He would appear after a jump and then look for the next space node to jump to. Simply put, he needed to rest halfway. The fire dragon was stunned. It was now saved by a skeleton and locked in a magic scroll. Otherwise, why would this skeleton raise it as if it was holding a big bubble? The fire dragon's blood was constantly corroding the barrier. Fire and water were incompatible. Ning Shu kept strengthening the barrier. Damn, space jumping was really tiring. It made him dizzy and uncomfortable. It was as if his spirit had been hollowed out. He chased in the direction of Augustine. He stopped several times before he caught up to Augustine. Fuck, you ran really far. Ning Shu also felt tired. Run when I tell you to. Vicky, you're back. This? Augustine saw the dragon that Ning Shu was holding. You really saved it? Where are we going now? Ning Shu asked the fire dragon. To my lair. There's dragon fairy grass beside the lair. It can heal injuries. The dragon said. You can actually talk. Augustine was shocked. The dragon was a little disdainful. What's wrong with that? /BK. Chapter 2662. Powerful magical beasts had gained intelligence and could speak. Moreover, the dragon clan had their own language, dragon language. The elf clan also had their own language. They were all intelligent creatures. Why were they so surprised? I'm just too surprised. I've never met a magical beast that can speak. You're so powerful. I'm not a magical beast. I'm a dragon, a dragon. The fire dragon was very weak, but it didn't want to ruin the great image of the dragon race. Ning Shu didn't want to listen to it. He asked, Where's your nest? Which direction? Oh, your bones can even talk. The giant dragon was a little surprised, even though it was communicating through consciousness. What's wrong with that? Any bones with a little intelligence can talk, Ning Shu said directly. The dragon pointed in a direction. Ning Shu pulled Augustine in that direction. But one man, one skeleton, and one dragon made it harder for Ning Shu to jump through space. And each jump was half a meter away. And Ning Shu was exhausted. Every time he jumped, he would fall flat on his face when he reappeared. At this speed, how long would it take to move to the dragon's nest? Augustine got up from the ground and said, Vicky, although I don't know what's going on, why do I keep falling? Augustine felt that his eyes were blurred for a moment. When he came back to his senses, he had already fallen to the ground. This repeated again and again. What's going on? Ning Shu had no choice. Then let's walk. I'm afraid that magical beasts will find us. Don't be afraid. Augustine looked around. He pulled out grass from the ground, put it in his mouth, chewed, and smeared it on Ning Shu's face. His face was full of grass juice mixed with saliva. Then he smeared the juice on his face and body. Magical beasts hate this smell the most. They'll take a detour. Ning Shu, I'll believe you for now. Some low-level mercenaries would even use dragon feces. But now she was using the enchantment to hide the dragon's scent. Letting the fire dragon poop on his body was telling the magical beasts that they were here. Although Ning Shu was holding the dragon, it was not heavy at all because of the barrier. The fire dragon's lair was in the heart of the mountain range. The deeper they went into the mountain range, the stronger the magic beasts were. When Ning Shu and Augustine were walking towards the lair, they encountered several groups of powerful magic beasts. Ning Shu hurriedly used a barrier to conceal himself, isolating his aura so that the magical beasts could not see them. When they arrived at the dragon's lair, there were many skeletons piled up outside the lair. These skeletons belonged to the beasts that the dragon had hunted for food. Looking at these piles of bones, the giant dragon's appetite was really big. Put me down quickly, I can see the dragon immortal grass. The fire dragon struggled to break the enchantment. Ning Shu coldly said, If I let you go and you ate the dragon immortal grass, your injuries will be healed. Are you planning to eat my master? My master asked me to save you, but I was worried that you would eat him. The dragon's throat gurgled as it suppressed its roar, not daring to be too loud. It was clearly afraid of attracting the attention of those magical beasts. What do you mean? Ning Shu directly said, Of course I'm worried that you will bite the hand that feeds you. I heard that dragons are also quite cunning and despicable. A creature that believed in the law of the jungle and only wanted to survive did not keep its word. The fire dragon asked, Then what do you mean? I want you to protect my master. That's impossible. I will never become a human's mount. I hate humans. Therefore, it's impossible for me to do what you're saying. The dragon rejected him without even thinking about it. Its injuries were caused by humans. Now that humans had saved it, they wanted to enslave it. Dream on. Just as Augustine was about to speak, Ning Shu stepped on the back of his foot. Augustine was in so much pain that he couldn't speak. He squatted down and covered his foot. Ning Shu said, If my master did not ask me to save you, you would have become a meal for those magical beasts. To think that a dragon like you would be eaten by magical beasts and turned into a pile of dung. Aren't you ashamed? Even if that's the case, I won't become a human's mount. You saved me, so I'll give you rewards. Gems and purple coins, I can give you all of them, the dragon said, but its eyes flashed with a cunning light. As long as it ate the dragon immortal grass and recovered a little, this human would become one of the piles of bones. Ning Shu obviously knew the dragon's pride and its wishful thinking. He directly said, I know that dragons have a long lifespan, hundreds of years, but I want you to protect my master for 30 years. Once 30 years are up, you will naturally die. Dream on. 30 years in your dreams. The fire dragon was so angry that it almost spat out fire. 30 years was not long for it. Sometimes, a dragon would sleep for a few years. But being threatened like this, it did not feel good. Protecting a human made it even more uncomfortable. It did not want to be a free dragon and wanted to be a slave of a human. Was there something wrong with its head? It could not understand why a dragon would be ridden by a human and even want a human to become a dragon knight. What was wrong with its head? Therefore, it was determined not to have anything to do with a human, especially a contract. Ning Shu did not say anything. He turned to Augustine, who was covering his feet, and said, Do you see the grass at the entrance of the cave? That is the dragon immortal grass. It can be sold for a lot of money. Pluck it out. Did you see the grass? I would rather throw it away than give it to you. Augustine asked softly, Isn't that for dragons? It doesn't want to eat it now, so it plucked it out and sold it for money. After all, we saved a dragon. It is only right for us to get some reward. Ning Shu said, Brat, if you touch my dragon immortal grass, I will eat you. The dragon threatened. Augustine was speechless. What did you guys talk about? How did you guys get so angry from talking? Ning Shu said, 30 years. Isn't your life worth 30 years? You are blackmailing me. The dragon gritted its teeth, but it looked very weak. Otherwise, why would I save you from those magical beasts? My master is too weak. I have to plan for him. Ning Shu said, 30 years. 5 years, 30 years. 10 years, 30 years. 20 years. That's it. 30 years. Augustine said, Vicky actually. Ow. After being stepped on again, Augustine's eyes were filled with tears. He wanted to say that he did not have to have a dragon. He had Vicky. Ning Shu retracted his foot. She was negotiating with a dragon, and this guy was dragging her down. Shut up. The dragon's blood dripped onto the barrier. Augustine's heart ached at the sight of it. Can I receive some blood? If he added some dragon blood when making weapons, the effect would definitely be better. /BK. Chapter 2663. Augustine thought to himself. If he had added dragon blood to the staff that he had given to the Rose family's little girl, the effect would have been better, and the magic would have increased. When the dragon heard this, it immediately roared, You actually dare to covet my dragon blood. I can't be bothered to say that you're a necromancer, but you still covet my blood. It wasn't that the dragon didn't know that human alchemists really liked to add some blood to their weapons. When it came to magic beasts, blood, bones, magic crystals, and even the heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys would not be spared. It was extremely vicious. Augustine scratched little curly hair. Anyway, you've already lost so much blood. It's such a pity. I won't protect this kid, but I can't guarantee that this kid won't make me bleed every day. Ning Shu could tell that the fire dragon was already compromising. Its breath was getting weaker. If it continued to endure, it probably wouldn't be able to endure. The fire dragon had a plan in its heart. The power of human magic scrolls made it extremely weak. It would eat the dragon immortal grass first. Ning Shu said, That's her problem. Bleeding doesn't exist. 30 years. Do you agree? I agree. Let me eat the dragon immortal grass. Then let's sign the contract, Ning Shu said. After signing the contract, you can eat as much as you want. Let's be fair. Equal contract. You can't enslave my master, and my master can't enslave you. The fire dragon was speechless. Let me eat the dragon immortal grass first. Sign the contract first. The first. Sign first. Okay, sign first. Do you have a contract scroll? The fire dragon asked. Nope. This kind of magic scroll was not something that a poor guy like Augustine could have. Magic scrolls could achieve the effect of releasing magic instantly, so they were highly valued by magicians. However, they were expensive to produce. Seeing that the two of them didn't speak, the fire dragon knew that they didn't have a contract scroll. It immediately said, "Come find me when you have a contract scroll. Let me eat the dragon immortal grass first. I can't take it anymore." The fire dragon let out an exaggerated aria. The blue flames in Ning Shu's eyes flickered. Augustine said sadly, "Vicky, we don't have a contract scroll." He really didn't care if he could form a contract with a giant dragon or not. Ning Shu said, "You dragons should know the method of contracting, right? Some dragons would take the initiative to contract with others." "I don't know. I have never contracted anyone before." Fire Dragon took over the area and wasn't so angry anymore. He didn't prepare anything and he wanted to contract a giant dragon. Shouldn't it be more solemn and sacred? Did it look like such a casual dragon? Ning Shu said, "You go buy them." Didn't he have a few purple coins? He should be able to buy a magic scroll. But the magic scroll is used to buy the Windchaser beast's magic crystal, Augustine said. Ning Shu gestured towards the cave and said, "There should be a lot of magic crystals and purple coins in there. Take some and pull out all the dragon fairy grass. Let's go." "Where to?" "Go to the town to buy a contract scroll." "Damn, where's your brain?" There really are a lot of magic crystals in here." Augustine walked into the cave and let out an inhuman scream. Ning Shu pulled out all the dragon fairy grass at the entrance of the cave. "The grass is in my hands now. After we sign the contract, I will give it to you." Fire Dragon slammed into the barrier angrily and stared at Ning Shu with fire spewing out of its eyes. "You can control me. Why does he need help and protection?" "Because my ability is temporary. No one knows when it will disappear," Ning Shu said directly. Augustine had a big bag full of magic crystals, and a smile blossomed on his face. "Vicky, look, there are so many magic crystals." There were all kinds of magic crystals of different colors. There were red, green, and gray. They were all different sizes and shapes. Then the group started walking again and returned to the tree hole. Augustine went to the town to buy a scroll. Before he left, Ning Shu reminded him again and again, "You must buy a scroll." He was afraid that Augustine would go crazy when he reached the town and spend all his money on materials. Ning Shu and Fire Dragon waited at the entrance of the tree hole for Augustine to come back. "Can you give me the dragon fairy grass now?" "Wait for Augustine to come back." The giant dragon was shocked. "Gem dragon, crystal dragon." Augustine came back with a scroll. Ning Shu asked, "Is it a contract scroll?" "I asked the shop owner." "It is a contract scroll." "It must be." Fire Dragon was very unhappy. The magic array on this beast's skin asked it to protect this human for 30 years. Ning Shu released the barrier and the giant dragon dripped a drop of blood on the magic scroll. Augustine also carefully cut his finger and dripped a drop of blood. The magic array faintly glowed and then disappeared from the beast's skin. With that, the contract was established. Ning Shu heaved a sigh of relief and quickly pushed the dragon fairy grass in front of Fire Dragon. "Now that we are partners, I will give you a bunch of grass as a greeting gift." Fire Dragon did not have time to despise her and swallowed the dragon fairy grass. Its injuries had not healed yet and it would take some time. Ning Shu hurriedly enveloped it with a barrier. Fire Dragon was angry. "What is the meaning of this? I have already signed the contract and you are still locking me up? Don't be anxious. I am thinking for your sake. Your aura will attract those beasts. In order to hide your aura, I have put in a lot of effort." Ning Shu said, "If you lock me up, how can I cultivate and heal? I need to absorb fire elements." Fire Dragon was still very angry. Fuck, if it was not for its injuries, it would not be treated like this. It was a dignified giant dragon, a member of the dragon race, an awesome dragon race. Augustine did not feel anything about owning a giant dragon. Instead, he went to the tree hole to refine things. He was very excited. With a lot of materials in hand, Augustine was eager to try. Fire Dragon lay down and absorbed the fire elements in the air to heal its injuries. Ning Shu had been experimenting with the space, hoping that he could jump for a longer time. Ning Shu appeared and disappeared. Fire Dragon did not even bat an eyelid and slept soundly. The dragon race was blessed by the heavens. They could cultivate even in their sleep. Human magicians, on the other hand, had to constantly meditate. Ning Shu found some food for Augustine. There were fruits and birds that looked like pheasants. She roasted them and gave them to Augustine. Augustine sometimes forgot to eat and focused on alchemy. Ning Shu felt that the undead staff would be completed soon. At that time, the difficult days would just begin. Fire Dragon's injuries were slowly healing. Hopefully, it would be fully healed before the undead staff was completed. Ning Shu originally wanted Augustine to cultivate a peerless martial art. However, he was so focused on it that he forgot to eat and sleep, not to mention cultivate. Ning Shu felt depressed. He could only continue to practice spatial jumps. It would be easier to escape when the time came. /BK Chapter 2664. When he jumped alone, he could jump a little further, but if he carried someone with him, the distance would be very short. It consumed a lot of mental power because he had to locate the spatial node. Ning Shu sometimes jumped with a big rock, but sometimes there were mistakes during the jump. Even if he chose a spatial node, he might not be able to jump there. Ning Shu sometimes suddenly appeared in water, on a tree branch, or even in the nest of a monster. The monster roared at her, and Ning Shu hurried to run away. Even the simplest spatial teleportation had all kinds of problems. I failed again. Augustine came out with a dirty face and bloodshot eyes. The fire dragon glanced at him and looked away. Vicky, I'm hungry. Ning Shu took out fruits and barbecued meat. What are you going to do? I don't know what I'm going to do. There are so many materials anyway. Augustine wolfed down the food and leaned close to the fire dragon. What do you think the effect of adding a magic array to a weapon will be? You can try, the fire dragon said perfunctorily. I'm going to town, said Augustine. What for? Ning Shu asked. What are you going to buy? I'm going to buy a book on magic arrays, like magic scrolls. I'm going to engrave magic arrays on weapons. Augustine's eyes shone brighter and brighter. He grabbed a handful of purple coins from the dragon's nest and hurried to town. Ning Shu sighed. Nothing could stop an alchemist's enthusiasm. The fire dragon opened its eyes. Has he always been like this? Isn't he a necromancer? Why is he always doing what alchemists do? Ning Shu said, he's an alchemist who's been delayed by his talent as a necromancer. Is he an idiot? If he wants to create a magic array, he can only do so with the corresponding attribute talent. The fire element could draw a fire magic array, but the wood and metal elements couldn't make a fire magic array. Augustine could only make a necromancer magic array, no matter what kind of magic array he drew. It didn't matter how he wanted to do it. Fire Dragon had completely accepted the fact that he had been protecting Augustine for 30 years. He was a technological geek and didn't need to fight. He just needed to bask in the sun every day. 30 years passed in the blink of an eye. Then, it flapped its wings and left without looking back. It was pretty good. However, even when it was dark, Augustine still hadn't returned. Ning Shu felt that something might have happened to Augustine. He hasn't returned yet. Let's go look for him. Ning Shu disappeared in a flash. When he reappeared, he was already at the outskirts of the forest. After walking for some distance, he would reach the town. Ning Shu breathed a sigh of relief when he sensed that someone was approaching from the front. It was Augustine. If she was alone, she could be by his side all the time. Ning Shu was quite worried that Augustine would be robbed. Merchants, mercenaries, and crooks were all gathered in the small town. There were many people who ate each other. What happened to you? Ning Shu looked at Augustine's sad expression. Did someone do something to you? Vicky, I saw my mother. Augustine said. Why did your mother appear in this remote town? Ning Shu felt that the little girl must have gone home and told her mother about Augustine. She missed her son so much that she came all the way here. Did you talk to her? Yes, but she didn't seem to know me. She bumped into me and apologized. She gave me some purple coins and treated me to a meal. Ning Shu was speechless. You always have people giving you money. Why are you so lucky? Actually, it's not bad to be able to see your mother. Ning Shu comforted him. Very quickly, Augustine tossed his sadness to the back of his mind and started researching magic arrays day and night. His eyes were red. Ning Shu simply made some grass with sleeping properties and boiled it into water for him to drink. He was originally a weakling, but he still overused his body. He would go bald. Without hair, no matter how handsome he was, he wouldn't be able to keep up. The fire dragon never interfered with what Augustine did. After its injuries were healed, it returned to its previous lair and moved all the gems and gold coins there, then rolled on the surface of the gems. When its strength recovered, it went for revenge. In short, when it came back, it was full of the smell of blood. Even after washing, the smell of blood was still strong. The magic beasts that had besieged the fire dragon were all killed. It was either you die or I die. Augustine's enthusiasm for learning amazed Ning Shu. Without anyone's guidance, he bought a book on how to make magic arrays and then began to draw according to the steps in the book. He bought a lot of materials. These materials were ground into powder and drawn stroke by stroke. It felt a bit like drawing a talisman. He didn't know how many times he failed and how many purple coins he had spent. The fire dragon felt that the purple coins and gems under its body were getting fewer and fewer. It was getting more and more uncomfortable sleeping. The thief must have stolen its purple coins to buy materials. Dragons liked bright colors and were also very stingy. The fire dragon counted its gems, purple coins, and gold coins over and over again every day. Augustine was having a hard time when it came to magic arrays because he had never really trained in magic arrays before. Drawing a magic array required the body to output elements, so now Augustine was a Spartan. How could he do it? Ning Shu finally seized the opportunity and immediately said, Augustine, I think you should meditate and cultivate. I see that your bones are sharp and you are a talent for martial arts. I have a secret manual here. I have to meditate. I don't want to meditate. Augustine wailed. He wasn't interested in this stuff. Ning Shu was expressionless. Then you can't draw a magic array. Then I'll meditate. Augustine sat cross-legged and began to meditate. But after a while, he opened his eyes. What a waste of time. It's better to do things. I have a secret book here. I think I should practice drawing more. Augustine got up from the broken bed. I have a book here. Vicky, I'm hungry. Ning Shu, explode on the spot. Ning Shu went out of the tree hole to find food. The fire dragon said, Catch a magic beast for me, a slightly bigger one. Otherwise, I won't be full. I can't catch it. Catch it yourself. You've become a fat dragon. Ning Shu was speechless. Why couldn't he sell the ultimate martial arts? Augustine was obsessed with these things. What a waste of time. Ning Shu revealed a motherly concern. Without power, how could he protect himself? Ning Shu expressed that she was worried sick. Unfortunately, she was now a skeleton and couldn't practice the ultimate martial arts. At most, she could use a bit of spatial power and the law of water. She couldn't even use the law of wood. How could a skeleton like her protect Augustine, who was on his last legs? /BK. Chapter 2665. Ning Shu just couldn't sell the peerless martial art. Every time he tried to sell it, he failed. Augustine said that he didn't want to cultivate. He only meditated occasionally so that he could draw magic arrays. What could Ning Shu do? He could only let him be. He rarely meditated on his own magic, not to mention secret martial arts manuals. Augustine scratched his head. Martial arts? What the hell? Thus, Ning Shu gave up on the promotion. Augustine, who was healthy, did not need power at all. He was so engrossed in alchemy that he could not extricate himself. Finally, on a sunny day, Augustine raised his staff and let out a barbell-like smile. I did it. I did it. I finally fused the magic array into my staff. Ning Shu turned to look at the staff. It was inlaid with all kinds of gems. It was very luxurious. The fire dragon said, "I know my gems were stolen by you, you little thief." The fire dragon stared at the staff. Its eyes were about to spit fire. Ning Shu had a glimmer of hope in his heart. This shouldn't be an undead staff. Undead staffs weren't so luxurious. Ning Shu asked, "What are you doing?" "A staff that can summon the undead," Augustine said. Ning Shu knelt down. Was it because the fire dragon had brought a lot of gems that made the previously bare undead staff luxurious? Augustine tried to summon the undead, but in an instant he was surrounded by all kinds of skeletons. There were animal skeletons, human skeletons, big and small skeletons. An inexplicable power was attached to these skeletons, making them move slowly and lethal. I failed." Augustine's expression was very dispirited. "I wanted to summon the undead, not these skeletons." The fire dragon was shocked. It instantly summoned the skeletons around it. This staff was awesome. It could summon skeletons to fight at any time. But Augustine's expression was very depressed. He threw the staff to the ground. To him, this was a defective product. The surrounding white bones also fell apart at once. "Are you trying to summon the undead?" Ning Shu asked. "Yes, I want to make a staff that can summon the undead, not these skeletons." Augustine treated the staff as if it was nothing. Ning Shu simply wanted to hammer the ground. Undead have their own places to go. What's the point of summoning them? If they don't agree, they can still be summoned. "Then I'll make a tool that can be summoned," Augustine said. Ning Shu picked up the staff and asked, "Since it's a failed product, let's destroy it." If the staff was destroyed, Augustine would be safe. "Forget it, there are gemstones on the surface. They can be sold for a good price," Augustine said. "Then can we dig out the gem and destroy this failed product?" Ning Shu asked. "It's better not to destroy it. This is my first real work." "Ning Shu, you ate everything I made before?" Therefore, Augustine still had special feelings for this staff. When he sold it, he told the shop owner that he could summon skeletons and let the shop owner know that he was a necromancer. He immediately reported it to the knight in town. In order to not be caught, Augustine used his staff to summon a lot of skeletons. Although Augustine successfully escaped, the news spread like wildfire. It attracted a large wave of necromancers and also attracted the empire's attack. The king was shocked. If one day this fellow snuck into the palace and used the staff to summon skeletons, wouldn't he be able to take down the palace? Ning Shu said, "Since it's your first time, then don't sell it. Keep this staff and worship it. Burn 3 incense sticks every morning and night." Augustine didn't plan to sell it. Maybe he would wait until he couldn't survive and needed money to buy materials before he sold it. Now, if he dug out a gem from the fire dragon's leg, he could buy a lot of materials. For now, he didn't have any survival problems. Then, Augustine once again started to make a staff that could summon undead. He was determined to make it. Ning Shu felt that the success rate was low. If he could summon souls from the reincarnation world, that was impossible. To pass through such a plane and reach the reincarnation world, then summon souls from there, how much power would that require? It wasn't something that a staff could do. If it was this world, then he could probably summon souls that stayed in this world. Ning Shu allowed him to do whatever he wanted. He stared at the staff and didn't let him sell it. He felt that with the staff here, something was going to happen. Something was definitely going to happen. It wasn't her who jinxed it. A staff could stir up so much trouble. There was no one else who could do that. But in Augustine's heart, this was still a failure. What could he say? He just had a different understanding. He didn't quite understand the meaning behind the creation of this magic staff. Everything came into being for a reason. Was the purpose of this magic staff to send Augustine to his death? Wasn't this the new era of alchemy? Ning Shu dug a hole and buried the staff. Augustine saw it and didn't say anything. The fire dragon said, "Why do I feel like you can't get along with a staff?" "I'm just worried. If this thing falls into the hands of a necromancer, then it'll be like a fish in water," Ning Shu said. The fire dragon closed its eyes and sunbathed. "That's true. But it's a disaster if we keep it. It's better to get rid of it or destroy it." Ning Shu touched his bald chin and thought. Why not sell it? It was better to destroy it. The fire dragon could melt it with its magma. That would be great. Ning Shu dug the staff out from the ground and placed it in front of the fire dragon. Breathe out dragon breath and melt it. Really? What if he looks for it? The fire dragon asked. It was good that it melted. It could take back the gem. The gem was hard. Dragon breath couldn't melt it. It's okay. I don't know where I put it, Ning Shu said. The fire dragon spat out a mouthful of saliva. The magma-like saliva covered the staff and sizzled. It didn't melt for a while. Spit again, Ning Shu said. Under the effect of the dragon breath, the staff slowly melted. In the end, only a few colorful gems were left. The fire dragon stretched out its claws and pulled out the gems from the saliva. It placed them under its body. If anyone dared to steal its gems again, it would eat them. Ning Shu let out a sigh of relief. No matter what, a crisis had been resolved. But he was still nervous. If the mission was completed, she should have left the world. But she didn't. So, it wasn't over. And after destroying one, Augustine could make another one. Ning Shu wanted to stop him. That would take away the motivation that kept Augustine alive. As long as he could do this, Augustine didn't feel so bitter. /BK. Chapter 2666. Ning Shu hugged his head, thinking about how to turn the tables in the future. He had to settle down. The most important thing was to clear his name. Vicky, I made another one. Augustine took out a magic staff. Clang, clang, clang. Ning Shu wasn't surprised at all. She didn't feel anything in her heart. She even felt like crying. This enthusiasm made Ning Shu concede defeat. Augustine nervously began to summon the undead, but it obviously failed. He summoned a lot of skeletons. Augustine was squeezed between them and was about to cry. How can you summon these? I don't want them. Augustine was annoyed. Ning Shu, you'll be struck by lightning if you show off. And Ning Shu felt that the magic staff summoned more skeletons this time. If she let Augustine continue like this, Ning Shu felt that the next time he summoned the skeletons, the range of his summon would be even wider. Ning Shu pushed the skeletons aside, walked to Augustine and said, Augustine, let's go to Suez. Suez was the largest city in the country. It was also the imperial city. The palace, the royal family, the noble families, and the magic academy were all in Suez. Of course, the Rose family was there too. Augustine's blue eyes flickered. He asked, why are we suddenly going there? Aren't we fine here? It had been many years since he left Suez. He had not returned to Suez even once. His situation was not suitable to go to crowded places. Ning Shu had a plan in mind. Since this disaster was unavoidable, he might as well face it head-on. Instead of being entangled by groups of necromancers here and being chased by the Empire's knights here, it was better to go to the imperial city to find an opportunity. And Suez should have the fewest necromancers. Most necromancers lived deep in the mountains and forests, doing all kinds of experiments and playing with corpses. Augustine's biggest problem was that he had the talent of necromancy. What if his value made people forget about his talent? Augustine obviously did not want to go to Suez. There were many people in Suez, and he could easily be exposed. If he was exposed, it would implicate the Rose family. Moreover, he had to be separated from Vicky, and Vicky's image could not appear in front of everyone. Vicky, tell me, why do you want to go to Suez? You will be killed. Vicky's soul flame had been extinguished, which scared him half to death. Ning Shu said, there are a lot of materials in Suez, and there are also many powerful alchemists. Augustine, you should give it a try. I'm doing very well here. I don't want to go. Augustine entered the tree hole with his staff. Ning Shu could only shrug his shoulders helplessly. Necromancers were like street rats that everyone wanted to beat up. They could only hide in cramped and dark places. Augustine was still worried about his identity. When a person's achievements were high enough, it was enough for people to forget his background and disgrace. Augustine was probably afraid of returning to his hometown. He was used to staying in the dark and did not dare to appear under the sun. He was used to being alone. It was impossible to persuade Augustine in a short time. He could only take it slow. In the evening, Augustine was not studying magic arrays, which was rare. He sat next to the fire with Ning Shu and stared at the roasted rabbit that was dripping with oil. Ning Shu handed him the roasted rabbit. "Eat first." "Vicky, if I go back, what will you do?" Augustine took the roasted rabbit and asked. "Go with you, of course," said Ning Shu. "No, you will be discovered." They had always been inseparable. They would rather live in the mountains for the rest of their lives than go to Suez. In particular, she was a skeleton. If she was discovered, she would be in danger, and so would he. Ning Shu asked, "Do you want to go back?" Augustine was silent. Ning Shu knew what he was thinking. "That's okay. Let's go back. Sometimes I can turn invisible." "Augustine, have you ever thought that one day, people won't care about your identity as a necromancer?" "How can that be?" said Augustine. "Then when are we leaving?" asked Ning Shu. Then he said to the dragon that was snoring next to him, "We are going to the big city." "What? I'm not going." He would not go to crowded places. Those people stared at him as if he were a monster. As soon as he appeared, there would be screams everywhere. That was enough. Ning Shu said, Go to Suez. You will meet many of your kind." "Are you talking about dragons that are ridden by humans?" "Those people are a disgrace to the dragons, enslaved by humans. Where's the pride of dragons?" "I don't want to know those dragons at all," said the fire dragon, raising its chin high. "Don't forget that you are going to protect Augustine for 30 years. Wherever Augustine goes, you have to go with him." The fire dragon was speechless. It felt that it had been tricked. Also, there are a lot of good things in Suez. There are many precious gems and rooms full of purple coins. Don't you want to go and take a look? Ning Shu tempted. The fire dragon blinked its red eyes and did not say anything. "Augustine, the dragon has agreed to go to Suez," said Ning Shu. "Let's leave tomorrow." Augustine said, "So fast." He was still a little conflicted. "Let's do it now. Tomorrow I will go to the forest to find something to eat." "We will eat on the way," said Ning Shu. Augustine scratched little curly hair. "Vicky, why do I feel that you are very excited?" Ning Shu shook his head. "Am I? Why should I be excited? What am I excited about?" "Your soul flame is always jumping, and you still say that you are not excited," said Augustine. "There was such a thing?" Ning Shu laughed. "I have never seen a big city. I want to see it." "Okay, what do you like? I can buy it for you." Augustine looked into the distance and decided to go back. He was very excited. He had not been back to Suez for many years. He wondered how the Rose family was doing now. Ning Shu found some wild fruits. When he reached the town tomorrow, he could buy some jerky. At night, Augustine tossed and turned in his shabby bed but could not fall asleep. He sat up and said to Ning Shu, who was beside him, "Vicky, I can't sleep." "Then meditate." "Then I'd better sleep." Ning Shu was speechless. This was the first time he met someone who hated studying. If he had diverted some of his energy to alchemy, Augustine would have become a peerless master. Would she still be so worried? After failing to promote the peerless martial arts, Ning Shu began to suspect that his peerless martial arts were junk that no one wanted. The next day, the sky was slightly bright. The group was ready to set off. Ning Shu jumped on the fire dragon's back. The fire dragon was so angry that it threw her off. "What are you doing?" /BK. Chapter 2667. Ning Shu stood firmly on the back of the fire dragon and said, "Of course I'm going to sit on your back. You can fly there. Are we going to walk to Suez?" The fire dragon said, "The pride of a fire dragon doesn't allow anyone to step on my back." "Then what should we do? Are you going to walk with us?" "You walk, I'll fly," the fire dragon said. Ning Shu asked, "Then what do we need you for?" The fire dragon rolled its eyes. No, its eyes turned red. "I'm only responsible for protecting him. I didn't say I'm going to be his mount. Besides, there's a first and a second time. This is my last pride. I won't let anyone step on it." Augustine comforted Ning Shu, "Then let's find a car to go back." Ning Shu said, I want to sleep with a dragon. No, I want to ride a dragon. The fire dragon was speechless. It was the first time it heard someone say that. It's okay. We can take the magic beast car back. Augustine put away the purple coins, gold coins, and gems. They could buy food on the way back. Vicky, put on your clothes. Augustine held a big black cloak in his hand and was about to put it on Ning Shu. Ning Shu said, "No, I can be invisible for the time being." Ning Shu wrapped himself in a water enchantment and disappeared in front of Augustine. Good God, I won't worry about you like this. Augustine carried the bag on his back. You have to follow Augustine. Ning Shu's voice sounded on the fire dragon's back. The fire dragon suddenly shook its body. Who gave you the courage to appear on the dragon's back? There's a ready-made means of transportation, but I can't use it. The fire dragon said gloomily, Sure, come and sit on my back. When I fly to the sky, I'll shake the two of you down and smash you into a pile of mud. Then you'll be bitten. You have signed a contract. You can't hurt Augustine. Ning Shu said, I'm just kidding. Do you really think I want to ride you? It's not like I haven't ridden a dragon before. The fire dragon didn't want to talk to Ning Shu. It flapped its wings and flew into the sky. Ning Shu chased after Augustine, who kept yelling at her to confirm that she was beside him. Augustine went to the small town to buy some dry rations, dried meat, and a map. He also bought a magic beast carriage. This kind of horse was a crossbreed. It was half a horse and half a magic beast horse. It had great endurance. Augustine did not look for a coachman and decided to drive the carriage himself. After all, their group was a little special. There were skeletons and giant dragons. Ning Shu raised his head and saw the fire dragon flying in the sky. Vicky, get in the car. I'm going to drive, Augustine said. Can you do it? Had this idiot ever driven a car before? I can do it. Augustine drove the carriage. Seeing the horse start to run, he breathed a sigh of relief. Ning Shu decided to just lie down in the carriage. The carriage was very bumpy, and Ning Shu felt as though his bones were about to fall apart. It was very hard to sleep in the open. When he was hungry, he would eat some dry rations and drink some water. At night, the giant dragon would fly down and catch a magic beast to eat. The magic horse was scared by the giant dragon and directly knelt on the ground. The fire dragon was proud. At this time, it could feel the pride and majesty of a giant dragon. From the remote town to the city of Suez, the journey was long. Even with horses, it still took almost 2 months. When they reached the huge city of Suez, all the hardships were worth it. The giant dragon flew directly into the sky above the city. It was discovered, and the dragon knights of the empire were dispatched. Flying in the sky above the city was forbidden. Obviously, the fire dragon, a country bumpkin dragon, did not know this rule. Augustine hurriedly stopped and said to the guard, That is my dragon. It's my first time here. I don't know. Please don't besiege my dragon. The guard looked at Augustine, who was travel-worn and covered in dirt. This guy was a dragon knight. His temperament did not look like it. Ning Shu concealed himself beside Augustine to prevent anyone from discovering him. The fire dragon was surrounded by the dragon knights. These dragon knights were all stepping on a dragon, but these dragons were more or less of the subdragon level and were not real giant dragons. However, to be able to become a dragon knight and have a dragon was already a rather impressive existence. The fire dragon snorted and snorted, making the surrounding subdragons a little weak. A strong dragon could not suppress a snake in its old haunts. At this point, the fire dragon suppressed its violent temper and flew to Augustine's side. Augustine shyly scratched little curly hair. It's my first time here. I don't know the rules. Sorry. Augustine's face had baby fat and he had the shyness of a tech guy. It was hard to believe that this guy was a dragon knight. Moreover, he was a fire dragon of the giant dragon race, not a subdragon. Subdragons were born when the giant dragon race mated with other magic beasts. For example, when a bear was born, it was a dragon bear. As for adult male dragons, they did not reject any of them. Many magical beasts had a trace of dragon blood in them. Are you really a dragon knight? A dragon knight could not help but question. Augustine nodded. Yes, I have already signed a contract with it. You can ask it if you don't believe me. The fire dragon did not speak. It just snorted arrogantly, making the dragons beside the dragon knights tremble. This was a little awkward. They were dragon knights, but now they were being suppressed by the giant dragon beside a country bumpkin. Some giant dragons had good relations with humans and would take the initiative to sign a contract with them. However, most giant dragons were very arrogant. There were very few who would take the initiative to sign a contract with a human. So jealous, very jealous. Miles looked. That's the person we met in the mountains. The fire dragon beside him is the fire dragon we were chasing. He saw the situation outside through the window. There were also dragon knights on the move. There were many people surrounding them. Ordinary people respected dragon knights. Miles's face could not be any darker. After returning from the mountains, Vanessa had ignored him. Sometimes she would even send back the things he sent. Now, this person actually appeared in Suez with a fire dragon beside him. In order to catch the fire dragon, they worked so hard and beat the giant dragon half to death. They did not expect to work for someone else. New hatred and old hatred made Miles's handsome face as black as charcoal. Miles was not the only one scratching his heart. Even the dragon knights were jealous. This was a giant dragon, not the subdragon beside them. Moreover, it was a fire dragon that breathed fire for no reason. How did this guy trick the giant dragon into signing a contract with him? A knight asked, "What contract did you sign?" "We signed." Augustine was stepped on by an invisible foot. The pain pierced his heart. Augustine immediately said, "I don't know what contract we signed. You have to ask it. /BK. Chapter 2668. The fire dragon raised its head proudly. Of course it's a master-servant contract. I'm the master's servant. Augustine was speechless. As long as you're happy. The knights looked at him with pity. So he was the dragon's servant. The dragon had the final say in his life and death. The fire dragon was unhappy. I'm just going to play in the city. Don't surround me. I'm not happy. The dragon knights made way for the fire dragon. The fire dragon walked away. Miles rushed out of the restaurant and chased after Augustine. Wait! The fire dragon turned and saw Miles. He was about to spit fire. His eyes were red when he saw his enemy. Augustine didn't care about people who weren't important to him. When he heard someone calling him, he asked, "Who are you?" Miles's face twitched. "We met in the mountains." Augustine nodded and didn't say anything. Miles's eyes were glued to the fire dragon. The fire dragon shivered in disgust. Why was he looking at him like that? He wanted to kill him. "I have something to do. I'm leaving." Augustine turned and left. He was thinking about where to stay tonight. Ning Shu said, "Buy a small yard. It could fit the fire dragon." Augustine nodded. He had plenty of gems and purple coins. They were all the fire dragons. Miles watched the yellow-haired man leave. They had actually chased him all the way to Suez. They were here for Vanessa. Not only did he steal his dragon, but he also wanted to steal his woman. He knew that he was trouble. He should have killed him in the mountains. With the fire dragon around, Augustine went to buy the yard. It was surprisingly smooth. He didn't even bargain. The other party gave him the lowest price. Augustine thanked him profusely. "You're a good person." The yard wasn't big, but it was quiet. The fire dragon could sleep in the big garden. Augustine asked, "Vicky, what are we going to do next?" He was a little anxious. Ning Shu said, "Why don't you go and practice alchemy and raise your level?" Mages and fighters would go through tests. When their level was raised, they could enjoy benefits. "I'm going to take the exam. I haven't studied it before, so..." Augustine had always been unorthodox. "What's wrong with that? Just make the item, but you absolutely cannot make an undead magic staff, got it?" Augustine nodded nervously. I understand." Augustine stayed up all night, feeling both nervous and expectant. The next day, he went to the Alchemist Union with dark circles under his eyes. There were various guilds, such as the Magic Guild, the Potion Guild. Ning Shu followed beside Augustine, invisible. Augustine signed up, but he was hesitant to fill in the magic talent column. In the end, he didn't fill it in. Generally, the examination would start from the lowest level, and apprentice alchemist was the lowest level. Ning Shu cheered for Augustine and waited for him at the entrance of the examination room. Augustine was the first to come out, holding the medal. "I've become an apprentice. Ning Shu, you can still take the test." Thus, Augustine continued to take the test and actually became a level 8 alchemist. What was the concept of level 8? It was equivalent to a magic shooter, a very powerful existence. Ning Shu was not surprised. When Augustine came out, he was surrounded by many people and felt uneasy. He looked around but could not see the invisible Ning Shu. "Ning Shu, run!" Augustine had never been surrounded by so many people. One by one, they stuffed things into his hands and introduced their families. Augustine had no idea what they wanted to do. Hearing Ning Shu's words, he ran away directly. Back in the small courtyard, Augustine asked, "So, what are we going to do next?" "Do whatever you want. You can buy some materials back and continue." "Like this?" Augustine was puzzled, but in a strange place, Augustine was very obedient. Suez had a young dragon knight, a real dragon, not a sub-dragon, and a level 8 alchemist, a level 8 alchemist. The atmosphere in Suez had become lively, and everyone was thinking about how to recruit such a talent into their family. They wanted to visit every day, and there were people wandering around the courtyard all the time. After a short period of apprehension and confusion, Augustine returned to his state of being addicted to alchemy, unable to extricate himself. He did not care much about the outside world. One day, Vanessa brought a middle-aged man to visit. They knocked for a long time, but no one answered. Ning Shu pushed Augustine and said, "Vanessa is here." "Who?" Augustine did not come back to his senses. "Vanessa from the Rose family," Ning Shu said. At the mention of the Rose family, Augustine remembered and quickly opened the courtyard door. Vanessa saw that it was really Augustine, and her eyes lit up. She quickly introduced, "This is the level 9 alchemist, Master Dennis. The handwriting I gave you before was written by him." Augustine wiped his hands on his body and said nervously, "Please come in." Master Dennis was a middle-aged man with an ordinary face but a laid-back aura. He was surprised to see Augustine so young and said, "I have never seen such a young level 8 alchemist." Augustine scratched his head, and scratched it again and again. Vanessa saw the fire dragon sunbathing in the courtyard. The giant dragon that Miles wanted was actually with someone else. Thinking of Miles' ugly expression, Vanessa smiled until her eyes curved. The fire dragon saw Vanessa, and immediately snorted. There were sparks coming out of its nostrils, and it stared at her unkindly. Vanessa's smile became even sweeter and brighter. The fire dragon thought, "Crazy." The fire dragon turned around, and its back faced Vanessa. The magic elements in Suez were so thick and comfortable. "If I had known, I would have come earlier." The two technology geeks chatted awkwardly, and Augustine almost scratched the curly hair on his head until they finally found a topic on alchemy. The two of them discussed and experimented, and did not stop until the sky turned dark. Vanessa did not disturb the two of them. She went out to buy some food and left it there. She heard that giant dragons liked gemstones, so Vanessa carefully placed an expensive and bright gemstone in front of the giant dragon. The giant dragon stared at her, and then looked at the gemstone. "This cunning human wants to use this method to bribe me, but this gemstone is so beautiful, so shiny and bright, so conflicted." On one side was a blood feud, and on the other side was a bright gemstone. No, so conflicted. After Vanessa left, the giant dragon put the gemstone on itself. "Wow, this gemstone is so close to the dragon. It's so comfortable." Miles saw Vanessa coming out of the courtyard, and was furious. He knew that man was here for Vanessa. Miles felt like he had been betrayed, and his head turned green. /BK. Chapter 2669. Augustine was very famous, but he basically didn't go out. Alchemist Master Dennis would come here to discuss alchemy with Augustine when he had nothing to do. Some busybodies even climbed to the wall and saw the fire dragon lying in the garden. They were frightened and worshipped him. The fire dragon turned a deaf ear to the power of these people. He slept every day and asked Augustine to buy him a whole roasted lamb when he woke up. Roasted lamb was the best thing the fire dragon had ever eaten. He was shocked when he ate it by chance. As a country dragon, he had always eaten bloody raw meat. When he suddenly ate a whole roasted lamb that was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, he regretted not coming here earlier. Otherwise, he could have eaten these things earlier. A big city was good. The fire dragon had a good life. Ning Shu felt that he was getting fat. Ning Shu was invisible all the time. He only showed up when there was no one at home. Augustine felt very sorry that he had to hide Vicky from the public. However, after coming here, he felt that there were some parts of alchemy that he didn't understand. After discussing with Master Dennis, he understood a lot. Ning Shu said, "Augustine, you've got so many staffs and weapons. You can sell them at the auction. They're all failures. Then make a successful one and sell it. You can make money to feed the greedy fire dragon." The fire dragon ate more than 10 whole roasted lambs every meal. You can become famous by selling more weapons. What's the use of being famous? Augustine asked. Being famous is to let more people know you and pay more attention to you. I don't need that. Ning Shu simply said, I don't have money to buy materials. Augustine immediately agreed to sell the items at the auction when he heard that there were no materials and no money. Of course, he didn't have the help of Master Dennis. Augustine was a hothead who didn't know anything about everything. Dennis, on the other hand, was quite fond of Augustine. Even though he knew nothing about human relationships, he felt that it was because of his dedication to alchemy that he was able to become an 8th-rank alchemist at such a young age. The auction house respectfully accepted Augustine's magic staff. After being appraised, it was confirmed to be a 9th-grade magic staff. If it was any higher, it could be considered a divine artifact. Moreover, Augustine had been unparalleled recently, and the auction price was quite high. With money, Augustine stayed at home. More and more people wanted to order staffs and weapons from Augustine. Because of the magic array, the power of these staffs could be increased by 20%. 20% was not a small amount. These people came with their own materials, and Augustine only had to work hard to make them. Augustine was unwilling, but Ning Shu said, "Do it. You can practice alchemy, earn money, and make people owe you." Weapons and staffs were essential for fighters and mages. Just like potions, no one could guarantee that they wouldn't get hurt or sick for the rest of their lives. These professions were actually quite revered by people. Augustine felt that it was right to listen to Vicky. When Vicky came to Suez, if he didn't come, how could he meet Dennis? There were also all kinds of alchemy. So Augustine began to help people make staffs. Of course, he couldn't make too many, just one a month. But Augustine asked. He could make a lot of staffs in a month. Rare things are precious. If you make too many, you'll look cheap. He didn't refuse anyone. Augustine didn't quite understand, but whatever Vicky said he would do. So he made one staff a month, and the delivery time was uncertain. Some people were dissatisfied, thinking that this alchemist who came out of nowhere really thought he was a big deal. But they could only accept it. If the other party didn't want to do business, there was nothing they could do. If they went to a 9th-rank alchemist, the other party might not accept it, but the skills weren't that good. It would be a waste of their good materials. The products might not be good. Anyway, as long as one reached the peak of any profession, they would be quite awesome. And these people would owe him a favor. In the blink of an eye, Augustine had been in Suez for almost 3 months. During this time, Vanessa would come over occasionally and bring some things. She didn't say it, but she was here to see Augustine. Augustine had specially made a magic staff for Vanessa. Ning Shu suggested that girls liked pretty girls, so he had to put some gems on it and make it look like a flower. Augustine thought it made sense when he heard that. Because Vanessa had a fire element magic talent, Augustine licked his face, wanting the fire dragon to bleed some of its blood so that he could add it to the staff. The fire dragon raised its head and looked down at him. The sparks coming out of its nostrils burned Augustine's little curly fur. Fuck, who gave these guys the guts to bleed it? They were asking for it. Augustine was very dispirited. He couldn't do anything to the fire dragon. He couldn't beat it. It could kill him with one claw. With ready-made materials, the ones he bought might not be as pure as the fire dragon in front of him. Ning Shu said, "You said you won't buy roasted whole lamb anymore." Augustine ran over excitedly to threaten the fire dragon. This time, his hair turned into an afro. He came to Ning Shu with a burnt smell. Ning Shu was also convinced. Augustine could cry and make a scene in front of the giant dragon every day. The two of them had signed a contract, and the giant dragon could not hurt him. Augustine did as he was told, and the fire dragon was about to go crazy. Every day, the fire dragon would nag and nag. The fire dragon was so annoyed that it gave Augustine a drop of blood. Although it was only one drop, it was still the size of a bowl. The fire dragon was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. Vanessa held the staff. It was decorated with shining gems. There were too many of them. Well, Vanessa hesitated. She wanted to say something but stopped. "My mother admires you a lot. She wants you to help make a wood element staff." Augustine agreed without hesitation. "Sure. That material is with my mother. I would like to trouble you to make a trip," Vanessa said. Augustine looked into the void. Because he didn't know where Ning Shu was, he could only use this method to tell Vicky that he was looking at her. Go to the Rose family. Augustine hadn't thought about it yet. He was a little afraid of the door. He was no longer a member of the Rose family. Would he be kicked out if he went? Augustine was still very mindful of his identity as a necromancer. During the time he came to Suez, no one realized that he was a necromancer. He didn't tell anyone either. Plus, no one asked. It wasn't a lie. He didn't know how long he could hide it. And with Vicky's invisibility ability, even she didn't know when it would disappear. Chapter 2670. Vanessa saw Augustus's hesitant expression and immediately said, "It's okay if you don't agree. We'll talk about it when you're free." Then she left with the magic staff. Miles had been secretly watching the surroundings of the small courtyard recently. Every time he saw Vanessa going in and out of the house, he was furious. Now, the two of them had started to give each other gifts. The magic staff in Vanessa's hand must have been given by that person. Vanessa looked at the food in her bowl and pot. The Rose family's influence was waning. They might not even be a noble family by then. She was still arrogant and wanted to rely on a grade 8 alchemist. So what if he was a grade 8 alchemist? If he died, there would be nothing. Firstly, he had no family. Secondly, he was alone. She still wanted to rely on such a person. These years, the Rose family was waning. Their talents had withered. After the death of the Rose family sorcerer, the family no longer had a strong person who could support the family. The more strong people a family had, the more stable their position and the more confident they would be. They were like a stabilizing force. Miles looked at Vanessa, but Vanessa was indifferent to him. Miles squatted here every day and saw Vanessa come more than a few times. Who knew what they were doing inside? Vanessa was the person he liked. He had never betrayed her. Why did he have to meet this person secretly? Miles climbed the wall carefully. Seeing the huge dragon in the garden, he was furious. Back then, he brought so many people and grade 8 magic scrolls and almost injured the dragon. He didn't expect it to run away and now become someone else's dragon. His dragon knight. Without a dragon, what kind of dragon knight was he? This guy stayed in the house every day. If he had the ability, come out and let him die accidentally. He died when he was in the limelight. It was like a joke. After Vanessa left, Augustus asked Ning Shu, "Should I go to the Rose family?" Ning Shu shook his head. "Wait a little longer." "Why wait? Wait for what?" Augustus asked. Ning Shu showed himself. He didn't hide. "Wait until you're famous and powerful enough to make others risk for you. Because you have enough capital." Augustus was speechless. He didn't understand at all. Anyway, he didn't understand. "Then what should I do?" Augustus asked. "Do what you need to do," Ning Shu said. Although Augustine wanted to return to the Rose family, he hadn't returned for so many years. No one knew what the Rose family's current situation was. What if his father wanted to kill him again? To be honest, Augustine felt that it was ridiculous. Just because of his undead talent, he had to completely deny a person. Novels had to pay attention to logic, but reality was often absurd and there was no logic to speak of. What did the necromancer do? If the necromancer was a big threat, then the other mages were also a threat. Fire mages could destroy cities, and water mages could drown cities. It all depended on what kind of person wielded the power. Were all necromancers bad? Augustine suddenly felt a little tired. Even alchemy couldn't cure the mess in his heart. Ning Shu said, "If you become a 9th-level alchemist, you can go back." "Really? Then I'll go take the test now." "Let's wait for the assessment," Ning Shu said. "Take your time, there's no rush." Augustine could only give an O as he felt very helpless and uncomfortable. It was fine before he was far away, but now that the Rose family wasn't far away, he couldn't go back. Augustine sighed and felt very depressed. He suddenly leaned over and sighed at the sky, the moon, and the stars. "Ning Shu, it's not like I'm not letting you go back. Why are you sighing? You've endured it for so many years, why can't you endure it now?" When Vanessa returned to the Rose family, she first went to see her mother, but she never thought that her father would be with her mother. The two didn't have a good relationship. That kind of thing happened in the past, so it wasn't that her mother wasn't angry. As for her, it was said that she was a product of alcohol. It was said that her father was drunk and forced her mother. Vanessa was very sad. When her brother left, her mother and father slept in separate rooms, so their relationship was very faint. "Father," Vanessa quickly called out. Count Windsor nodded with a cold expression, but he didn't move from his seat. Mrs. Windsor glared at him before asking her daughter, "Is that alchemist willing to make a magic staff for me?" Count Windsor raised a cup of black tea and took a sip, listening to his daughter speak. Vanessa said, "He said he needs to consider it." Mrs. Windsor had a sad look on her face. "Then don't ask, he has enough to eat and warm clothes." "It's all right, but he doesn't have anyone to take care of him. Every time your daughter goes, he's busy." Vanessa naturally didn't know that there was a skeleton by her brother's side. Look, he didn't become a necromancer that everyone hates, so how could he suffer so much? Vanessa quickly comforted her. Big brother is already an 8th-level alchemist. With Master Dennis' teachings, he will definitely become a 9th-level alchemist. Mrs. Windsor sighed. It was already very good that her son was still alive. She thought that she would never see him again or that he would turn into a pile of bones somewhere, but this was already very good. She didn't have any hopes of being his wife. Count Windsor put down the cup of black tea and said, "I heard that he has a giant dragon." Vanessa said, "Yes, I don't know why the giant dragon is willing to sign a contract with Big Brother." "Did you ask what kind of contract it is?" Count Windsor cared about this. If it was a giant dragon servant, the giant dragon would just eat him. "Your daughter didn't ask, but they don't interfere with each other and the giant dragon didn't order Big Brother around, so it should be an equal contract." Vanessa guessed. Count Windsor stood up. He wanted to talk to his wife, but his wife turned her head to the side, so he couldn't say anything. Count Windsor could only leave, leaving the mother and daughter to whisper to each other. "Mother, don't you see that father's attitude has softened?" Mrs. Windsor just gave a laugh. Talent is given by the heavens. Because of an undead talent, he wants to kill his own child. "I feel that Big Brother will be back soon." "Mother, don't worry." Mrs. Windsor rubbed her brows, as she had an indescribable melancholy aura. "Go and see him, give him anything he lacks." Her husband was turning a blind eye now because the child had become an 8th-level alchemist. Some people struggled and couldn't become 8th-level alchemists their entire lives. The Rose family situation was a bit awkward now. Mrs. Windsor understood her husband's thoughts. /BK. Chapter 2671. If it wasn't for the sudden appearance of this child Augustine, Vanessa would have been a tool for a marriage alliance. If it wasn't with a royal family, it would be with a prominent noble, who told the Rose family to not have an indomitable expert, But Augustine, this child, was talented. Why did he have undead talent? Vanessa thought her mother was disappointed, so she kept comforting her, saying that her big brother would be back soon. Mrs. Windsor was worried about her daughter and her son. The Rose family only agreed because of Augustine's status as an alchemist. Count Windsor was simply the nemesis of these children. However, as long as Augustine could return to the Rose family openly, these matters could be forgiven. When a person had value, others would think twice before doing anything and treat him with caution. Mrs. Windsor was very happy that her son had his current achievements. Perhaps not long after, they would be able to meet in the Rose family. Augustine wanted to go back too much, so he began to challenge the level 9 test. But Dennis didn't agree. He was in a rush. Level 9 was a large threshold, and if he was in a rush, it wouldn't be easy to pass. No matter how anxious Augustine was, with Ning Shu and Dennis disagreeing, he could only not go. Now he was more and more immersed in alchemy, occasionally taking the magic staff to the auction house to sell. He had been researching different things, and he had to draw 2 magic arrays on the magic staff. But magic was mutually exclusive. It had exploded many times and disturbed the fire dragon, not letting the human dragon rest. Ning Shu told her about the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth all reinforced and restrained each other. Metal gave birth to water, water gave birth to wood, wood gave birth to fire, fire gave birth to earth, and earth gave birth to metal. Metal restrained wood, wood restrained earth, earth restrained water, water restrained fire, and fire restrained metal. You couldn't put fire and water together. If it didn't explode, then the heavens wouldn't have eyes. Actually, magic also had a principle of restraint, like light against darkness, water against fire. These all had restraining effects. The elements restrained each other. It wasn't that Ning Shu didn't know Augustine was anxious, but she could only endure it for now. Ning Shu said, "When you become a level 9 alchemist and return to the Rose family, your value will be different and you won't be easily given up by the family. When you're free, you can make some weapons for some experts. Consider it a favor." Augustine didn't understand why Ning Shu would do this, but he also thought of how he was abandoned by his family when he was young. He also calmed down. Although he might not necessarily return to the family, he wanted to go back with his head held high. Most people would want to see the person who gave up on them to see how outstanding they were now. It was a painful and regretful mentality. Augustine didn't want his father to think that it was right to abandon him. Fire Dragon said to Ning Shu unhappily, "There's a kid wandering outside every day. Can I kill him?" It was this brat who had thrown one magic scroll after another at him. The power of a spell could blast a huge crater into the ground. Did you know how painful it was to throw such power at it? It was so painful. There were many powerful auras in the city of Suez, so the fire dragon did not dare to act rashly. If it was in the mountains, it would have eaten this guy. He was too lazy to eat it. It was too dirty. Ning Shu touched the fire dragon's hot skin and said, "Wait a little longer. I have a use for this guy." "You have a grudge against him too?" The fire dragon looked at Ning Shu. "Don't touch me with your claws. A noble dragon doesn't allow anyone to touch me. You have fleas." The fire dragon froze. A noble dragon did not have parasites. The fire dragon rolled over, trying to get rid of the fleas and parasites. During this time, Vanessa came a few more times. She came to deliver things, food, and clothes. She wanted to find someone to take good care of Augustine, but she didn't have the right to do so. Neither of them broke the ice. Vanessa had sent these items over to thank Augustine for the magic staff. She didn't mention making a staff for Madame Windsor. Miles was speechless. Vanessa came more and more frequently. What were these two doing in the house? Miles felt that there was a grassland above his head. These two had developed to the point of sending things to each other. He wanted to kill curly yellow hair, who had been holed up at home. This guy from the mountains actually dared to steal his woman. Should he ask his father to propose marriage to the Rose family and let him and Vanessa get engaged? That way, Vanessa wouldn't be able to come here so openly. So what if he was an 8th level alchemist? He was just an alchemist. He didn't even have the strength to truss up a chicken. It would be easy to force him to do something. He was willing to give face to the alchemist union. If he didn't, these alchemists would be embarrassed. Augustine planned to become a 9th-level alchemist. Ning Shu didn't stop him this time and let him take the test. Ning Shu waited for him outside. He waited for a day. Augustine came out of the test room with a tired face. He went home and slept. It was as if his body was emptied. He was like a child after the college entrance exam. Ning Shu felt that he didn't pass the 9th-level test. If he did, he should have an answer back then. Ning Shu prepared some light dishes for him. Augustine woke up and ate some. I passed the 9th-level test, Augustine said. Ah, passed. It was so peaceful. Didn't the Alchemist Union announce that a 9th-level alchemist had appeared in the Union? This was a very honorable thing. There's no need to make a big fuss. Why not? It was better to make a big fuss until everyone knew. Augustine didn't say anything. He washed up and put on his beautiful uniform, planning to go to the Rose family. Seeing this, the fire dragon could only follow helplessly. It didn't want to move at all. Why run? Couldn't it just stay at home? A man, a skeleton, and a dragon. To be precise, it was a man and a dragon. Ning Shu turned invisible and went to the Rose family. The fire dragon, who was surrounded by people, raised its chin arrogantly and looked at the people around it with contempt. Someone had already reported it. When Augustine arrived, there was already a butler at the door to welcome him. When Ning Shu went in, the Rose family's magic array kept ringing. It had obviously sensed a stranger. The butler was confused. Except for the guest, there was no one else. Ning Shu didn't go in. He and the fire dragon waited for Augustine at the door. Augustine was very nervous. His palms were sweating. Ning Shu and the fire dragon chatted outside while using their spiritual power to observe the situation inside. On the other hand, Augustine's father agreed to let Augustine return to the Rose family. Augustine now had a mentality. Even if you let me come back, I might not want to. In the end, if you don't accompany me when the sun falls, who are you to rise again? You don't deserve to share weal and woe with me. /BK. Chapter 2672. Augustine didn't think it was important to have the Rose family or not. He had been through it for so many years. Recently, in order to take the level 9 test, he had been experimenting with magic array fusion effects day and night. But now, he was indifferent. When he was strong, he didn't care about resentment. A real expert would take out his heart in the dead of night, sew it up by himself, put it back in when he was done, and wake up with confidence. He believed in himself and grew stronger. He didn't have a backer. He was the mountain. Augustine found that he could calmly face his father who wanted to kill him back then. This calmness made Augustine feel incredulous. He had a lot of attachment to his mother, Madame Windsor. Augustine didn't agree to go back to the Rose family, but the Rose family couldn't force him to stay. There was a fire-breathing dragon outside. They would be a joke for no reason. The Rose family was now holding on to their pride. The weaker they were, the more they had to hold on. Augustine went out, walked to the fire dragon, and said, "Let's go back." "Okay," said Ning Shu. The fire dragon snorted rather proudly and didn't move. "Let's go back," said Augustine. "I want to eat," said the fire dragon. Augustine had no choice but to take the fire dragon to eat roasted whole lambs. Then the fire dragon complained that eating in public was a disgrace to the peerless beauty of a giant dragon. It insisted that dozens of roasted whole lambs be carried home. Ning Shu, pretentious. What peerless beauty do you have? The news that Augustine was a level 9 alchemist spread like wildfire, and Augustine became famous again. More and more people wanted Augustine to forge weapons and staves for them. But Augustine still accepted very few of them, but now no one dared to say anything. As long as they could do it, they could wait. Then, Augustine made a staff that was the pinnacle of his work in more than a month. It was a staff formed by the fusion of 2 magic spells, one with the wood and the other with the water element. The healing effect was surprisingly good. The wood element had a healing effect. Most alchemists were of the wood element. They made potions by fusing herbs with their own wood element. Using this kind of staff now, it could strengthen the healing effect of ordinary wood element mages. Ning Shu was speechless. Fuck, This was in line with her nanny's attributes. Wood magic and light magic had healing properties. This staff could be used by both wood and water elemental mages. It could be considered a start, but the magic staff was given to Madame Windsor. Mrs. Windsor was a wood elemental magician. This was Augustine's first work after becoming a 9th-rank alchemist. If this were to be sold at an auction, the price would probably not be low. Of course, there were also many families who wanted to recruit Augustine. After all, having such an alchemist would bring a lot of wealth to the family. Alchemists and pharmacists were the same. They needed to invest a lot of money and time in the early stages. It was not easy to cultivate a talent. More and more people came to visit every day, and there was an endless stream of visitors. It was so noisy that the fire dragon roared, and it instantly quieted down for a few days. In short, Augustine's value should not be cheap as an alchemist. With the addition of a giant dragon, his value should be close to that of Master Dennis. Ning Shu saw that it was about time. Augustine's strength was about to be revealed. The Rose family wanted to let him return, but Augustine was facing a disaster, so it would depend on whether the Rose family could protect him or not. Since he wanted power and didn't want to take risks, how could there be such a good thing? Ning Shu revealed a faint smile, but didn't say anything. He removed the barrier around him and placed a ladder on the wall. When Miles climbed the wall, he saw a skull with a ghost flame flickering in its eye sockets. It suddenly appeared in front of him. Moreover, the flame was still trembling. Miles' body swayed and he fell down the wall, almost screaming out loud. What the hell was that? Miles was still in shock as he quickly climbed up the wall. Then he saw a skeleton running away. The skeleton seemed to be frightened as well as it ran away without a trace. Miles's heart pounded violently. He felt that he had discovered something incredible. A skeleton. It was actually a skeleton that could run and jump. What did skeletons have to do with Augustine in this yard? It was not a waste for him to guard here every day. He also secretly noted down the number of times Vanessa came here. Then he realized that Vanessa went to look for this man more often than he did. And she brought something every time. He was so angry, very angry. When he married Vanessa, he would definitely restrict Vanessa from interacting with this man. Ning Shu was no longer invisible. He appeared openly every day, sometimes carrying a roasted lamb for the fire dragon to eat. No matter what he did, he was no longer invisible. Augustine didn't care. He pretended that there was no one at home and Vicky could do whatever she wanted. After observing for a few days, Miles finally confirmed that this skeleton was Augustine's. Only a necromancer could have a skeleton. So Miles led a group of people to climb up the wall secretly and saw a skeleton sweeping the floor with a broom, washing clothes and cooking. Augustine was a necromancer. A necromancer? Miles slapped his thigh excitedly. They finally got something on him. The others looked at each other. They didn't expect the famous Augustine to be a necromancer. So all kinds of news spread. Master Dennis opened the door and saw the skeleton handing materials to Augustine. He sighed and said, "You're a necromancer." His tone was filled with disappointment. Augustine panicked. He explained while protecting Ning Shu. I'm a necromancer, but I'm an alchemist. She's a skeleton that has always been by my side. She hasn't harmed anyone. Now the whole Suez city knows that you're a necromancer. Dennis saw his pale face and knew that he was a clear-minded person. Don't worry. The Alchemist Union will help you. Thank you. Augustine's eyes were red. Why don't you run away quickly? Dennis said to him. Was he going to live a homeless life again? Augustine wanted to settle down, but his necromancy talent didn't give him any power. Instead, it made him fall into endless suffering and hardship. The giant dragon roared and stood up. It looked at the dragon knights that surrounded it. When the two came out and saw the dragon knights, Dennis shook his head. It's too late. There were many dragon knights this time. Flying dragons covered the sun all day long. The dragon knights stood on the backs of the dragons and looked down. By the order of His Majesty the King, we're here to capture the necromancer Augustine, a dragon knight said to Augustine. In addition to the dragon knights, there were also guards in armor surrounding the whole courtyard. /BK Chapter 2673. The small courtyard was surrounded by 3 layers of guards, and there were also dragon knights blocking the sky. If he wanted to escape, he could only drill into the ground. Augustine's face was solemn. He knew that this day would come soon, but he didn't expect it to come so soon. But he didn't regret coming to Suez. It seemed that he couldn't get through it. Augustine was very dispirited. He only wanted to be an alchemist, not a necromancer. Ning Shu said to Augustine, "Didn't you make a necromancer's staff that can summon skeletons? If you don't use it now, when will you use it?" Augustine really wanted to hit her head. The situation was already like this. If he summoned skeletons, wouldn't it make the situation worse? Dennis said, "I'll think of a way. Don't be impulsive. Even if you are caught, they won't do anything to you for the sake of the Alchemist Union. Besides, you're also a level 9 alchemist." Dennis said and left. He was in a hurry. Obviously, he was going to think of a way. Augustine grunted in agreement. Seeing that the outsider had left, the Dragon Knights were going to catch Dennis. "Are you blind? Can't you see that I'm here? You want to snatch someone from my claws?" The fire dragon's eyes were red, and its throat was gurgling. It was obviously brewing magma. The magic elements in Suez are so strong. My strength has increased again. Let's try it. A giant dragon made these dragon knights feel restrained, and the dragons under their feet were obviously timid in the face of a real giant dragon. If the fire dragon really spewed magma, there would be heavy casualties. The dragon knights didn't dare to really charge at the moment. They could only send someone back to report to the king. Capture or house arrest. Augustine only just realized that the giant dragon that usually only knew how to eat, drink, and sleep was so brave. Just as he was about to praise it, he heard it mutter, "Fuck, can't I run?" Augustine was speechless. Ning Shu said, "Summon skeletons. The stronger you are, the less the other party will dare to do anything to you." Really? Augustine didn't want to summon skeletons at all. Summoning skeletons meant that he was a necromancer. He had been trying his best to avoid this. When so many people summoned skeletons, his identity was fixed and he would always be a necromancer. Ning Shu said, "It's okay. Summon it." "Listen to me." Augustine pursed his lips and steeled his heart. He turned around and went back into the house because he didn't remember where the staff was. Ning Shu was speechless. "These are all valuable things. Why don't you care about them?" Ning Shu took out the magic staff from the box. If it wasn't for her help, he wouldn't have been able to find it even if the sky turned dark. Augustine held the undead magic staff with an indescribable feeling in his heart. "I'll give up." "No, summon," Ning Shu said firmly. "The Empire will consider more and will not push you to the opposite side." Being able to summon skeletons in an instant and being able to summon skeletons at any time and place would definitely make the country even more wary, but they would also be more cautious. The longer this dragged on, the more variables there would be. Moreover, she could escape with Augustine. Ning Shu chuckled in his heart. All right. Augustine trusted Vicky and believed that Vicky would not hurt him. If something happened to him, Vicky would follow. They depended on each other and relied on each other. In the past years, they shared their loneliness. Augustine sometimes thought that if it wasn't for Vicky, he might not have been able to hold on. Perhaps he would have died by now. The Dragon Knight saw Augustine holding the magic staff in his hand and his eyes narrowed. He quickly said, "What do you want to do? His Majesty the King's decree hasn't come yet. Don't act rashly." Augustine ignored him and chanted a spell. The magic staff flickered slightly. In the blink of an eye, many skeletons appeared in the yard. There were human skeletons, animal skeletons, and even magical beast skeletons. They were densely packed in the yard. Fuck, where did these skeletons come from? The Dragon Knights looked dignified. They knew that necromancers could summon skeletons to fight, but this was the first time they had seen such a fast speed. The necromancers they had seen before had many skeletons around them, like herding sheep, never leaving for a moment. But now, the skeletons appeared all of a sudden in an instant. If this was a war, summoning skeletons so suddenly would definitely disturb the enemy. Quickly report to His Majesty the King. The Dragon Knight's heart was heavy. One of the dragon knights rode a flying dragon and flew away. Brother! Vanessa came over and saw the guards at the door. Her heart sank. Something had happened. Vanessa, what are you doing? Don't go in. Miles grabbed her arm and pulled her to the side. Augustine is a necromancer. Do you want to interact with him? Necromancer? She was exposed. Vanessa flung Miles' hand away and hurried back to the Rose family. Vanessa. Miles chased after her. Wake up. He's a disgusting necromancer. Move aside. I have something urgent. Vanessa was very frustrated. She took out her magic staff. If you don't move aside, I'll attack you. Miles' face darkened. She must be in such a hurry to go back to ask the Rose family to save someone. He didn't believe that the Rose family would save a necromancer. If the Rose family knew that Vanessa was in contact with a necromancer, who knew what kind of punishment she would receive? I'm doing this for your own good. Augustine is a necromancer who disguised himself as an alchemist to infiltrate our country, Miles said. Vanessa couldn't keep listening. Shut up. Miles' face darkened even more. He couldn't even say anything. Vanessa quickly ran home and told her mother about this matter. Mrs. Windsor's face turned pale. She took her magic staff and went to find her husband. You have to save him no matter what. You've already given up on him once. If you give up on him again, Augustine will never return to the Rose family. I'll think about it, Count Windsor said. He had to be careful about using the entire Rose family to bet on one person. Mrs. Windsor had already seen through her husband. His wife and children weren't as important as the Rose family. She tried her best to understand him, but she couldn't. You couldn't have everything in this world. But that was her child. If power and wealth couldn't even protect the person she wanted to protect, what was the point of chasing after them? Mrs. Windsor looked at her husband with disappointment before turning to leave. Vanessa looked at her father and then at her mother before stomping her foot to follow her mother. Count Windsor rubbed his brows. He had a tired look as he took out a magic scroll from a box. Mrs. Windsor came to the small courtyard and was stopped by a guard. She knit her brows and used vines to throw the guard away before walking into the small courtyard. /BK. Chapter 2674. Madame Windsor's sudden appearance made the situation even more complicated. Madame Windsor represented the Rose family. Could it be that the Rose family also wanted to get involved? Report to His Majesty. The Dragon Knight captain also felt tired. A dragon knight flew to the royal palace. Augustine looked at Madame Windsor and Vanessa with a strange gaze. The skeletons in the yard made Vanessa scared, but she still followed her mother to Augustine's side. Madame Windsor looked at Augustine. Don't be afraid. Augustine wiped his tears. I'm not afraid. I will definitely let you leave this place alive. Madame Windsor said in a firm voice. Miles, who was standing guard outside, was dumbfounded. Vanessa actually called her mother over. He had been waiting to see Augustine's end. This, Madame Windsor greedily looked at Augustine, wanting to cry and laugh. Augustine scratched little curly hair, not knowing what to call her. There were so many people. If he called her mother, wouldn't it implicate the Rose family? Although he didn't have to return to the Rose family, he didn't want to do anything to them. Count Windsor went to the royal palace with a magic scroll in his hand. This was a divine-level magic array left by the Rose family's ancestors. His Majesty had asked many times, but Count Windsor didn't take it out. Now he had no choice but to take it out. He couldn't help sighing. When he came to the royal palace, he found that the Alchemist Guild's chairman was also there. He also came to ask for mercy for Augustine. It wasn't easy for a 9th-grade alchemist to appear. Augustine was still young and had a high chance of becoming a divine-level alchemist. It really was a pity to kill him. Count Windsor presented the divine-level magic scroll and said that Augustine was his son. No one knew about this, and once it was said, everyone was shocked. Even the king knit his brows. Count Windsor wanted to ask the king to forgive Augustine. He would properly take care of Augustine. He wouldn't let Augustine become a necromancer that would bring disaster to the region. The king didn't reply and was silent, as if he was thinking. At this time, a dragon knight came in and said that Augustine had summoned many skeletons. The king stood up and quickly asked, "Instantly summoned?" "Yes, it seemed like he had a magic staff and summoned them." The dragon knight said and explained in detail that when Augustine entered the city, there were no skeletons around him. Therefore, the skeletons appeared out of nowhere. Count Windsor didn't know if this was a good or bad thing, but he clearly couldn't easily deal with Augustine. If the king insisted on punishing him, then the country would lose a 9th-rank alchemist and offend a necromancer who could summon skeletons at any time. Although the empire didn't care about a mere necromancer, fleas were still annoying. It would be a loss for the empire if they were recruited by other countries. But it would be embarrassing. Of course, there were also people who objected. They said that they should eliminate the source of trouble. That way, there wouldn't be any threat. The Alchemist Union's president almost jumped up. "Kill? That's easy for you to say. Then compensate me with a 9th-rank alchemist and I'll let you kill him. But don't forget, he's a necromancer. Then don't forget he's an alchemist." The Alchemist Union's president gave a cold laugh. "It's good if you can kill him, but if you can't, he has a fire dragon and can summon skeletons. With his level of alchemy, if there is a large group of necromancers that do evil, can you take responsibility?" Based on what did he have to take responsibility? Based on what did he have to take responsibility? The nobles present were all confused. Count Windsor put his hand in front of his mouth and gave a soft cough. It wasn't suitable for him to make a sound at this time since he was Augustine's father. Without knowing it, that helpless child had already pulled the nerves of all sides. The royal palace was arguing and this side was in a stalemate. Miles was anxious. Why wasn't he making a move yet? Moreover, Vanessa didn't come out after going in. Did Vanessa want to betray her family? It can't be that she wanted to elope, right? In short, Miles' face turned dark the more he thought about it. In the yard, Ning-Shu Augustine asked, "Are you hungry?" Augustine said, "I don't feel anything." He didn't feel hungry in such a tense moment. The fire dragon said, "Give me some whole roasted lamb." Ning-Shu had no choice. He could only give the roasted lamb to the fire dragon. The fire dragon bit one lamb each time. It was crunchy and tasted like lamb. Everyone was nervous at first, but after a while, Augustine felt tired. He sat down and said to Mrs. Windsor, "You also sit down." Mrs. Windsor didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They were facing an enemy. How could he be like this? But seeing that Augustine really brought a chair over, she also sat down and pulled Augustine to ask him how he had been all these years. Mrs. Windsor didn't suppress her emotions at this time and pulled Augustine to ask him questions. Augustine said that he had lived in a place without people and had lived with Vicky for many years. Mrs. Windsor looked at Ning-Shu, whose eyes were filled with flames, and said, "Thank you as well." Ning-Shu nodded. Vanessa was a bit worried. Her father didn't stop her and her mother because he wanted to save her brother. If he really didn't save him, he wouldn't have let her mother come. Ning-Shu also thought the same. If he didn't want to have anything to do with Augustine, he wouldn't have let the mother and daughter come. Therefore, the Rose family decided to protect Augustine. Ning-Shu smiled inwardly. They were nobles after all. They definitely had some foundation. Moreover, Augustine himself was a 9th-rank alchemist. It was worth the risk. What Ning-Shu wanted was for Augustine to be able to live under the sun. So what if he was a necromancer? When he became famous, people would only forget about his unbearable past. They would even want him to forget about what they had done to him. So what if he was a necromancer? When he became a legend, this identity would only add to his legend. Plus, Augustine only cared about alchemy and didn't care about anything else. In short, with Augustine's current power, people had to consider it. Even if they wanted to pinch him, they might be stabbed. Until the sky turned dark, the dragon knights and guards didn't receive any orders to attack or retreat. They just stood there in a stalemate. Miles was speechless. It was so quiet. Were they all dead? Ning-Shu went to make some food and brought it over. Vanessa felt strange. It was her first time eating something made by a skeleton. Thinking about how her brother was so lonely with a skeleton, Vanessa sighed inwardly. She didn't know if her brother's wife would be able to accept this skeleton. It was a bit scary, especially when the sky turned dark. The two balls of blue flames were even more obvious. /BK. Chapter 2675. The next morning, the Dragon Knights received the order to retreat, but the guards surrounding the yard didn't retreat. Madame Windsor let out a sigh of relief. Since the Dragon Knights retreated, it meant that they wouldn't capture her son. The fire dragon snorted. Look, they were defeated by the dragon's prestige. No one said anything. The dragon lay down again with a lazy look on its face. Augustine Ningshu asked, Vicky, what does this mean? It means that His Majesty is still conflicted. Ningshu said, if you go to the palace, you have to say that you're loyal to the Empire. Even if you can't go to the battlefield, you can still make a lot of weapons and magic staffs. Ningshu said. Augustine gave an sound. But after a few days, Augustine was still in captivity. Madame Windsor and her daughter accompanied Augustine the entire time, cheering him on and telling him not to be afraid. Augustine wasn't afraid. Ever since he came to Suez, he thought that there would be a day like this. After all, he couldn't hide his talent as an undead. Ningshu was waiting for His Majesty to summon Augustine. Nothing was actually good news. However, something unexpected happened. He didn't know when, but a group of necromancers had gathered at the door. These necromancers took out powder and scattered it on the guards, making them faint. God, there really are skeletons. Great! Augustine looked at the necromancers pouring into the yard. These necromancers were all wearing black cloaks and they all knelt down to worship Augustine. Please come with us and let necromancy shine in every corner of the world. Necromancy is about to rise. Is this the undead magic staff? Ningshu, damn, what are these necromancers doing here? He thought that there weren't many necromancers in Suez. However, there was a slight change in the situation. The necromancer who had chased after Augustine before seemed to want to take Augustine's lead and do something stupid. The situation was already very chaotic and these necromancers still wanted to join in the fun. Weren't they afraid that they wouldn't be able to go back? These necromancers didn't have any skeletons by their side. It was quite amazing that they could run by themselves. If he went out, he would be thrown into jail. Were these people here to be funny? However, some necromancers had twisted minds. The necromancer who had killed Augustine felt as if he had killed his father or stolen his wife. Ningshu said to Augustine, ignore these people. Being marginalized by society, one's heart was more or less distorted and filled with negativity. Although there were times when people were innocent, under unfair treatment, they would become twisted and evil. It was tiring to be with such people. Of course, Augustine understood that he was someone who wanted to become an alchemist. He did not have the time to follow these people and spread the light of the dead to the human world. Augustine commanded the skeletons in the courtyard to attack the necromancers. However, these necromancers took out potions and sprinkled them on the skeletons. The skeletons sizzled and melted. Augustine was shocked. What kind of potion was this? How could it be so powerful? He quickly shielded Ningshu behind him. Don't go near those necromancers. Ningshu grunted but didn't say anything. All the skeletons touched by the potion turned into a pool of black water. Vanessa took out her magic staff and used the fire element to deal with these necromancers. These necromancers wanted to take her brother away. What would they do to her brother? Madame Windsor chanted an incantation and stretched out many vines, wrapping around these necromancers. Ningshu saw that Madame Windsor's vines were very thin, only as thick as a finger. If it was a strong creature like a giant dragon, these vines wouldn't be able to do anything. However, as the necromancer's strength increased, these vines should be able to grow. Augustine had no choice. He could only use his magic staff to summon more skeletons. When the necromancers saw the magic staff that could instantly summon skeletons, they went crazy. They all charged at Augustine like crazy. Roar! The fire dragon roared and spat out lava at these necromancers. The necromancers and skeletons that were touched by the lava all melted. This scared the necromancers a little, but their eyes were still fixed on the magic staff in Augustine's hand. Their eyes were green and looked very scary. These necromancers knelt down and begged Augustine to bring them and skeletons to conquer one country after another. With this magic staff in hand, they could conquer the world. Young man, let's go conquer the world. As long as it's an inanimate object, it will be our warriors and soldiers. Many creatures die in this world every day. These are all our soldiers. These necromancers were like idiots. They either wanted to destroy the world or conquer it. But soon, more guards and dragon knights came over and chased these necromancers away. The dragon knight captain said to Augustine, "His Majesty summons you. Come to the palace with me." "Can I bring my skeletons?" Augustine asked. The dragon knight captain's face turned black. Bringing skeletons with him was a great disrespect. Ning Shu said, "Remember what I told you. Bring this magic staff with you and give it to the country. Say that you won't make this kind of magic staff again." Augustine gave an O sound before following the dragon knight to the palace. Mrs. Windsor was worried, so she also followed. Ning Shu kicked the fire dragon. "Follow." The fire dragon had no choice but to follow. The group went to the palace under the protection of the dragon knight. If something happened, the fire dragon would definitely do something. Vanessa went out too, but she was stopped by Miles, who was guarding the surroundings. Miles was completely displeased with Vanessa. "You and Augustine, you're so annoying. Augustine is my brother." What? Miles' jaw twisted. That Augustine was Vanessa's brother. What brother? Lover brother? He had never heard of Vanessa having a brother. Miles was speechless. If that was the case, then he had always been jealous of his brother-in-law? Miles laughed. It was good that he was not a love rival. Vanessa was so annoyed. Seeing that he was actually gloating, she asked coldly, "What are you laughing at?" Miles immediately stopped smiling and said, "Don't worry. I will put in a good word for your brother in front of His Majesty for my father." "I don't need it." Vanessa walked around him. This person was really too annoying. He had nothing to do here. Maybe he was the one who revealed that her brother was a necromancer. She would rather die than marry this person. Ning Shu saw that no one was around and closed the door to the yard. He put away the magic staff and everything else that Augustine had made. /BK. Chapter 2676. What if it was stolen? These things were very valuable. After tidying everything up, Ning Shu looked for the spatial node to the royal palace and jumped through space. He also used a water barrier to hide himself. When he arrived at the royal palace, he found where Augustine was. The king was a young man with a big belly and a crown on his head. He looked at Augustine with an unkind gaze. Augustine was half kneeling with his magic staff raised in both hands. The king had someone accept it before saying, "Since you're a member of the Rose family, go back to the Rose family. If anything happens to you, the Rose family will be punished as well." Augustine knit his brows. Ning Shu said to him, "Thank the king for his grace." This was a chance to walk under the sun again. So what if he went back to the Rose family? The Rose family should have lost quite a bit this time. Augustine heard Ning Shu's voice and immediately calmed down, showing that he would be obedient. Although this matter was over, Augustine was still under surveillance. After all, if he could make this kind of magic staff, he could make another one. If this kind of thing fell into the hands of a necromancer, it would definitely cause a loss to the empire. The king had Augustine make an oath and sign a contract. This was a bit insulting, but Augustine didn't mind. This was already very good. He could return to the Rose family. Although he felt a bit uncomfortable, the joy of going back was greater than this. This discomfort was probably because Count Windsor was standing on the side. He had wanted to kill him before, his father. Vanessa was very happy and felt a bit dizzy. Her son was back and could return to the Rose family. This matter was over like this. When they came out of the royal palace, Mrs. Windsor hugged Augustine and burst into tears. Count Windsor walked over and Mrs. Windsor grabbed the scarf in front of his chest to wipe her tears. Count Windsor was a bit helpless. He looked at Augustine, not knowing what to say. He took the scarf from Mrs. Windsor's hand and left. Mrs. Windsor said, "Don't blame your father. He knew that I sent you away back then, but he didn't say anything. In order to save you, he took out a divine-level magic array. This magic array was a treasure passed down from generation to generation, and now it had fallen into the king's hands." Augustine sighed. If these were the hardships he had to endure in order to become an alchemist, then he would accept it. Ning Shu rushed back to the small courtyard ahead of Augustine. As soon as Augustine saw Ning Shu, he immediately said, "Vicky, I can go back. I can go back to the Rose family." Ning Shu nodded. "Can I go with you?" "Of course, you have to come with me. Does your family agree?" A skeleton walking around every day was really scary. The smile on Augustine's face gradually disappeared. "If they don't agree, we'll still stay here." Augustine asked Mrs. Windsor if he could take Vicky with him. They had been together for more than 10 years. Madame Windsor agreed. Her son had just returned, and if he had familiar objects by his side, he would be able to adapt faster. Madame Windsor tried her best to ignore the fact that it was a skeleton and treated it as something that had accompanied her son for many years. Augustine was about to pack up and return to the Rose family when Ning Shu took out the ring. "I've already packed up." Augustine immediately smiled and brought Ning Shu back to the Rose family with Madame Windsor. This was the first time Ning Shu had walked on the street so openly. Of course it caused a stir and many people were afraid. But with the guards of the Rose family, these people couldn't hurt Ning Shu. If Augustine was exposed, she would be able to walk under the sun as well. It was strange, but people were gradually getting used to it. Ning Shu was very happy. Hiding wasn't a long-term solution. There were many servants of the Rose family waiting at the door to welcome their master. When they saw Ning Shu and Fire Dragon, some of the girls screamed and caused a stir. Madame Windsor immediately scolded, "What are you shouting for?" Ning Shu waved his hand at these people and their faces turned green in fear, but they tightly pursed their lips and didn't dare cry out. Madame Windsor led Augustine to his room and made a room for him. The room was very luxurious and even the bedside pillars were inlaid with gems. "Thank you, Mother." After so many years, returning to the Rose family filled him with many emotions. Madame Windsor opened a cabinet. "These are all clothes made for you. They are all made according to your size. Wash up and we'll eat dinner together as a family." "All right." Madame Windsor looked at Ning Shu. "Do you want to make clothes for her?" Augustine asked Ning Shu, "Do you want clothes?" Ning Shu nodded. Her skeleton body was indeed quite scary. Although she could be scary wearing clothes, she couldn't wear them properly. The dinner was very sumptuous. There were candles on the table, turkey, bread, and all kinds of delicious things. Count Windsor was sitting there, looking at Augustine with an indifferent expression. Augustine opened his mouth, closed it, and opened it again. Finally, he called out, "Father?" Count Windsor raised a brow and said, "Sit down." Vanessa pulled Augustine to sit beside her and put the bread in front of him. "Big brother, eat." "Thank you." Augustine took small bites of the bread and felt like he was in a dream, actually being able to eat with his family again. It was a good thing that there was Vicky. Vicky was standing not far away with her blue soul flames dancing. Madame Windsor put the turkey on his plate. "Eat more, you definitely didn't eat properly outside." "Thank you." "Your skeleton doesn't eat?" Count Windsor looked at the strangely dressed skeleton as he asked this. Of course he was just looking for something to talk about. How could a skeleton eat? Augustine said, "It doesn't eat. Send some food to the Fire Dragon." Count Windsor said to the housekeeper. Augustine's lips moved as he said, "Thank you. No need." The topic froze like this. The atmosphere at the table wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it was just a bit awkward. After the meal, Madame Windsor brought Augustine to where he worked. She said that his father had specially built a spacious room for him to study alchemy. Augustine was very happy. This room was very big and there were many materials. "Thank Father for me," Augustine said. Ning Shu felt that Count Windsor wasn't purely a father. He didn't build this room for Augustine. It was most likely for the Rose family. But this was killing two birds with one stone. He was the ruler of the Rose family. Some things had to be done for the family. But it was good that Augustine was happy. He wasn't someone who thought too much. Since then, Augustine, the dragon, and the skeleton settled down in the Rose family. /BK. Chapter 2677. From the discovery that the famous alchemist Augustine in Suez was a necromancer, to the discovery that he was a member of the Rose family, everything had happened too quickly, just like a tornado. When people reacted, the dust had already settled. They thought that Augustine would die, but they never thought that he would become a noble. Ning Shu was very carefree every day. Madame Windsor sent someone to take care of Augustine, and the little maid who came to take care of Augustine was scared to tears by the giant dragon and skeleton. Every time she gave him something, she would run away like there was a ghost chasing her. The fire dragon complained, "Too cowardly, it's my fault for being so strong." Ning Shu didn't say anything. There was a follow-up to this matter. Because every night, there were necromancers who wanted to sneak into the Rose family. They wanted to see Augustine and have Augustine lead them to conquer the world. They wanted to scatter the undead radiance to every corner of the world and steal the magic staff, preparing to conquer the world with it. But the undead magic staff was in the royal palace, so these necromancers couldn't steal it from the Rose family. They would be caught by the patrolling guards each time, but necromancers were very cunning. Even if they were caught, they would use poison powder and the people who were poisoned had to be detoxified. Count Windsor had an indifferent look as he had people spread the news that the undead magic staff was in the royal palace, causing trouble. After taking the divine-level magic array from the Rose family, Count Windsor's heart still hurt. He wouldn't be happy if he didn't find something for the royal family to do. Then again, the undead magic staff was in the royal palace. He wasn't lying, he came to harass the Rose family every day. If he had the skills, he could harass the royal palace. The Dragon Knights would crush him. Count Windsor found that this child Augustine was a fool, only focusing on alchemy. He never thought that he would know to give the magic staff to the royal family. Was it intentional or not? Although they lost the divine-level magic array, they gained a 9th-level alchemist. Perhaps he would become a divine-level alchemist. Things were dead, people were alive. Then again, Mrs. Windsor finally showed a bit of respect to him, at least being willing to share a bed with him. She never let him get close to her for so many years, acting like a fool when he couldn't hold it in. After a few times, he was seen through and Mrs. Windsor used wood magic to heal him, so it didn't matter how much wine he drank. The necromancer received news that Augustine had offered the necromancer's staff to the royal family. Who was the one who had caused the necromancers to be in such a difficult situation? It was caused by the ruler, but I didn't expect that a necromancer would hand over the magic staff that would allow the undead to rise to power to the royal family. This was a betrayal to the necromancers. It was unforgivable. Some daring necromancers actually went to the palace to steal magic staffs. Count Windsor heard that the palace had been robbed and his lips curled into a smile as he took a sip of the black tea. It really tasted good. Some necromancers wanted to kidnap Augustine. Since the alchemist could do one, he could do another. With Augustine, he could have as many staves as he wanted. "Come with us, young man." Augustine, a 30-year-old young man, stayed at home all day. There was also a gluttonous and lazy fire dragon blocking the door every day, wanting to capture Augustine. For these necromancers, this was a large challenge. The necromancers discussed and decided to poison him. Didn't the fire dragon like eating roasted lambs? They would poison the roasted lambs. The fire dragon ate them one by one and the poison would be enough to kill him. The invisible Ning Shu listened to the necromancers discussing in the city's sewers. He went back to tell the fire dragon, "From this day forth, you can't eat roasted lambs." The fire dragon exploded, "Based on this, I have a bit of hobby and you actually won't let me eat it." Ning Shu said, "Those necromancers want to poison your roasted lambs. If you eat it, you'll be finished." Ayo. The fire dragon angrily roared and the entire Rose family could hear his voice. "I want to slap those rats to death." For his little life, the fire dragon began to fast. Even if a roasted lamb was placed in front of him, he wouldn't eat it. Augustine thought that the fire dragon was sick, so he didn't eat anything. He used to like eating roasted lambs the most. With all kinds of spices and sauces, it tasted very good. Fire dragon, isn't it because of you? You have so many things to do and now you've implicated the dragon so he can't eat. Properly speaking, if the fire dragon ate once, he wouldn't need to eat for several days, but the fire dragon was used to eating every day. If he didn't eat for a day, he wouldn't feel good. He was too delicate. The fire dragon couldn't lower his face to say that he didn't eat because he was afraid of death. He would be laughed at. Ning Shu said for him, he's afraid of being poisoned by the necromancers. Fire dragon. Augustine thought about it and decided to make something that could detoxify poisons, that way the fire dragon wouldn't starve. The fire dragon's strange behavior made Count Windsor ask about it. With the giant dragon's strength, it could scare some people and it was enough for Count Windsor to put the fire dragon in his heart. The fire dragon snorted and didn't say anything, ignoring Count Windsor. It was Vanessa who asked the fire dragon what was wrong. Vanessa should have the best relationship with the fire dragon in this family. Of course, this relationship was based on gems. Vanessa would always find some rare gems for the fire dragon. They were big and bright, so the fire dragon gave her a bit of face. The fire dragon didn't need to argue with the human child. The fire dragon would be surrounded by strong fire elements. Vanessa was a fire magician, so she could cultivate with half the effort around the fire dragon. For this, Vanessa gave up all the gems she had and even asked for some from Madame Windsor. Madame Windsor's thoughts were on Augustine, so she went to bed late. She went to Augustine's room in the middle of the night to see if Augustine was there. Only when she saw him did she let out a sigh of relief. She probably didn't believe that her son was really back. Augustine made a tool that could identify poisons and said to the fire dragon, use this to test before eating. It doesn't matter if there's poison, it can detoxify the poison. The fire dragon laughed. Why should I believe you? What if it couldn't detoxify the poison? This kid wanted to poison it to death, right? Augustine had no choice, he had to test it. So he found rabbits and rats and smeared poison on their food before using the tool he made to detoxify the poison. He fed it to these rabbits and rats and observed them for a few days, but they didn't die. The fire dragon was skeptical, but it still didn't believe him. As an optimistic giant dragon, it didn't want to die. Life was so beautiful, why would it die? Augustine experimented on a few large animals and after several tests, the fire dragon barely believed him. /BK. Chapter 2678. The Fire. Afraid of death. Dragon could finally eat a whole roasted lamb. These necromancers had disguised themselves as restaurant staff to deliver roasted lambs, hoping to poison the fire dragon to death. If the fire dragon died, they could capture Augustine who made necromancy rise. Moreover, the fire dragon's corpse would be a large source of fighting strength. This was simply great. These necromancers had been guarding the Rose family for a long time, but they didn't hear the cries of pain from the giant dragon. Could it have been poisoned to death? If it was poisoned to death, why was the Rose family so quiet? What was this situation? The necromancers scratched their heads in anxiousness. You have to tell us what the situation is. In short, in order to make necromancy rise up, they had worked very hard. After testing it a few times, the fire dragon began eating again. Anyway, Ning Shu felt that it had become fat. He didn't know if it could fly in the future. His Majesty was also annoyed by these mouse-like necromancers. It was unknown how many necromancers were in prison, but these necromancers seemed to have been injected with chicken blood, shouting slogans every day. Necromancy wanted to rise up and conquer the world, blah blah. That kid from the Rose family really knew how to act, but the more he acted like this, the more the king couldn't do anything to him. What if he was tricked by these necromancers? Or if he was bought over by another country, that wouldn't be a good thing for the country. What if he made large amounts of necromancy magic staffs? For this, His Majesty called Count Windsor to the royal palace and had him take care of Augustine, watching him a bit more. He wanted to see if he could write down the method of making necromancy magic staffs. Count Windsor's expression didn't change as he said, if we really write down this method, what if it gets spread? I asked Augustine. He doesn't remember how to do it himself, he's walking an unorthodox path. If Augustine wrote it down step by step and someone stole it and got their hands on it, wouldn't something go wrong? But if this method really got spread, Augustine wouldn't be the target of everyone anymore and those necromancers wouldn't stare at the Rose family all day. When every necromancer had the ability to summon skeletons in an instant, their power was actually equal. Necromancers only needed to carry a magic staff on their back, instead of herding a large group of skeletons like sheep. Count Windsor was really annoyed by these rats, so he said, "Your Majesty, this minister will go back and ask Augustine." The king was speechless. Didn't he disagree before? Why did he agree now? A person who could be a ruler was, of course, not a fool. He felt that this might be an opportunity to win over people's hearts, so he immediately said with a smile, "Then go back and ask him." Count Windsor had a difficult look on his face. Perhaps he doesn't remember at all. I heard that this magic staff was occasionally created, so if he really wanted to write it, he would have to do it many times. His Majesty's face twitched. "I'll send someone to deliver the materials." "Thank you, Your Majesty, but what other questions do you have?" The king couldn't help but ask. His expression was already very unfriendly. Count Windsor had a difficult look as he said, "Your Majesty, I don't know if he can test it or not. The Rose family had a divine-level magic array before, so normal people couldn't approach at all. But recently, the necromancers have been harassing the family every day, wanting to take Augustine away. This minister has sent many guards to protect him, but it's hard to avoid negligence." Count Windsor gave a sigh. His Majesty's fat belly trembled as he felt annoyed. He wanted to take the magic array back, but what could he do? He could only return it. It was too embarrassing. Moreover, the magic array hadn't even been warmed up yet and he wanted to take it back. His Majesty said, "I've sent some people to guard the Rose family, there's no need to worry." "That's great." Count Windsor let out a sigh of relief before saying, "You've sent guards, wouldn't the palace's guards be lax? I've heard that some people have snuck into the palace." "His Majesty, when we signed the contract, it said that Augustine couldn't make necromancer staffs, wouldn't that go against the contract?" Count Windsor asked. "His Majesty." In the end, Count Windsor took back the divine-level magic array. Of course, he used the method to make necromancer staffs in exchange. It didn't make sense that you couldn't take anything without paying a price. He had kept the things his ancestors left behind. Count Windsor stroked the magic beast's skin and revealed a faint smile. At the same time, the contract that prevented Augustine from making necromancer staffs was cancelled. When they came home, Count Windsor told Augustine to write down the method to make necromancer staffs and ask for whatever materials he had. He would get them for him. Augustine was a bit moved as he gave a long list of materials, which were all very precious materials. Augustine rubbed his hands in embarrassment as he asked, "Father, isn't this too much? It'll cost a lot of money." In the past, Augustine had to tighten his belt to buy some materials. The materials he mentioned were all materials he could only dream of before. Count Windsor revealed a fatherly smile as he said, "Relax, Father can get them for you." Augustine was almost moved to tears. "Thank you, Father." Count Windsor took the list of materials to find His Majesty. The king's hand holding the list was trembling, but he had already spoken. So cart after cart of materials, magic crystals, metals, and other things were sent to the Rose family. Augustine saw these materials and looked at Count Windsor with eyes filled with admiration and admiration. Ning Shu looked at these materials and found that there were actually level 9 magic crystals. Level 9, such powerful magic beasts. These things probably didn't belong to the Rose family and were extorted from the palace. A country's treasury wasn't enough to have these things. Using other people's things to make a favor, Augustine was moved to tears. Ning Shu looked at Count Windsor. Fox. Augustine wrote down the method to make necromancer staffs that his father mentioned. Although the contract said that he couldn't make necromancer staffs, it didn't say that he couldn't write down the method. Augustine gave it to his father and Count Windsor asked if he could make it. Augustine nodded and said that he could definitely make it. Count Windsor received the method, but he didn't immediately hand it over. The king urged him several times, but Count Windsor only said that Augustine was still experimenting. /BK. Chapter 2679. That undead magic staff was an accident and it would take a bit of time to make it again. Anyway, he wouldn't take it out so quickly, otherwise His Majesty would feel bad about his materials. When His Majesty was impatient, Count Windsor took it out. Since then, His Majesty monopolized the method of making undead magic staffs. Necromancers, if they wanted undead magic staffs, of course they could give it to them, but they had to sign a contract. Of course it was an unfair contract. Sign it if you want, don't sign it if you don't want. From then on, you were a part of the Empire in life and a ghost of the Empire in death. You couldn't do anything to harm the Empire. What conquering the world, they didn't even need to think about it. Many necromancers had gathered in Suez City recently and their goal was naturally the undead magic staff and Augustine. The Empire released their conditions. Although it wasn't fair to the necromancers, it would allow them to live under the sun and make them less hated. After all, they could summon skeletons through the power of space. They didn't need to bring skeletons with them. Some skeletons felt that this was a plot by the royal family, wanting to wipe out the necromancers. But there were some necromancers who signed the unfair contract and obtained undead magic staffs. But these undead magic staffs weren't that powerful. Some level 3 and 4 couldn't summon that many skeletons, only around 10 to 20. It wasn't like Augustine's undead magic staff that could summon a large group. But it was very expensive. Some necromancers wanted Augustine to help them make a powerful undead magic staff, but normal ones weren't good enough. Once summoned, a large group would be powerful. But the Rose family didn't agree, saying that Augustine wouldn't do it. The necromancers felt bitter and looked for other alchemists to help them, but this method was already monopolized by the royal family, so they wouldn't do it. So the necromancers had no other choice. They could only kneel down and call the Empire Daddy, giving them a magic staff. Of course, there was no lack of necromancers robbing each other. Some poor necromancers who couldn't afford it planned on robbing others. In short, His Majesty was smiling like a fatty, grabbing large amounts of money. He didn't even put the materials from before in his eyes. Of course, there were necromancers from other countries who wanted this thing, but they had to sign unfair contracts. Some of the necromancers from other countries were willing to betray their own countries, while some were unwilling. What could they do? Anyway, the king didn't care. This was a battle between necromancers. It had nothing to do with him. Even if they managed to snatch it without the production method, it would be useless even if they couldn't produce it. Now that she looked at it, that kid from the Rose family was truly a golden nugget. She couldn't let anyone take him away. Therefore, His Majesty prepared to give Augustine a noble title. Yao Luo was in his own country. Occasionally, he would give him some materials, which would make him shed tears of gratitude. Count Windsor revealed a faint smile. In the end, Augustine was a member of the Rose family. The blue flames in Ningshu's eyes danced. In fact, Augustine's condition hadn't improved. He might have been hunted down by the Dragon Knights and Necromancers. But now, there were probably several countries that wanted Augustine. After mastering Augustine, he grasped the crafting method of the undead magic staff. Ningshu guessed that necromancers might also be able to participate in future wars. But now Augustine could see the light, and there were so many people protecting him. In the future, he would be a god-level alchemist. If he could refine a divine weapon, it would be greatly beneficial to the country. Even for the Empire, there weren't many divine weapons. Once there was a divine weapon, it would become an important weapon for the country. Ningshu stretched himself. This mission was more or less done. The biggest danger had been solved. As for what kind of dangers he would encounter in his life, it was unpredictable and couldn't be avoided. No one's life was peaceful. People were afraid of fame and pigs were afraid of being fat. The more famous Augustine was, the safer he would be. If he didn't come to Suez City, the situation wouldn't be different from the plot. Knowing Augustine's value, naturally many people hoped that Augustine would be well. There was also the fire dragon that had to protect Augustine for 30 years. As for what would happen after 30 years, no one could predict it. They couldn't even predict what would happen in the next second, not to mention 30 years later. Although he had become a skeleton that couldn't speak or cultivate, he had comprehended spatial laws. Ning Shu suspected that the reason he could comprehend spatial laws was related to his previous accumulation. It was more likely that he was in a hurry. Because he couldn't cultivate, he had no power, he couldn't protect himself, and he couldn't protect Augustine. He was in a hurry. Ning Shu was a little embarrassed, but being able to teleport meant that he was half a step into the door, and he might be able to comprehend more. He didn't know if there was a world origin in this world. In a magical world, there were so many magic elements in the air. He didn't know if a world origin would be born. Ning Shu wanted to encourage Augustine to go to the palace treasury to see if there was a world origin. If there was, he could ask for it. She hadn't encountered a world origin for a long time. Were these world origins no longer born? Ning Shu planned to go out and stroll around the palace. At the same time, he used his mental power to check if there was a world origin in the palace. All the good things of a country should be in the treasury. Ning Shu jumped around the palace. He wanted to appear directly in the palace, but he was blocked by the magic array. He could only lean against the corner and use his mental power to scan the palace over and over again. However, his mental power was attacked, and his head hurt. The masters of the palace should have noticed it. It was said that there was a god in the royal family. It was a god that could suppress so many aristocratic families. Ning Shu returned to the Rose family. Anyway, he had seen what he should see and what he shouldn't see. He just didn't see the world origin. Even the treasury didn't have a world origin. Could it be that he couldn't find it in every place? Running around in so many countries? Ning Shu gave up. If he had the time, he might as well practice more space jumping. Every time he jumped, he would increase the distance. The legend of traveling 1,000 miles in an instant was not a dream. When he reached 1,000 miles in an instant, he would go to the treasury of these countries to take a look. However, that would probably be a matter of decades later. Ning Shu asked Augustine, "How did you get me into the skeleton?" Augustine scratched his head. "I don't know, I don't understand." Speaking of the client, it was a wonderful accident. However, there was no need to think about entering the world of reincarnation. His soul should be in the skeleton until his soul was completely worn out and he died. There was no chance of reincarnation. He didn't know if the client would come back. If not, Augustine would go crazy for a while. /BK. Chapter 2680. Maybe he would forget about the person after a while, especially since Madame Windsor was setting up blind dates for her son. Her son was already in his 30s and could get married. In order to find a beautiful and good wife for her son, Madame Windsor had to worry a lot. She often held banquets and forced Augustine to attend. Augustine was someone who didn't even know how to drink, so he naturally didn't know why he attended these banquets. Especially when a girl came to talk to him, Augustine wanted to run away. Seeing the girl run away, the girls who came to the banquets were very unhappy. "I haven't even finished speaking, why are you running away?" In the end, very few girls from noble families came to the banquets. After all, everyone knew about this banquet, but with the host's attitude, "I don't even want to marry you." Madame Windsor was also frustrated and asked Augustine, "Son, what kind of girl do you like? What kind of wife do you want?" But Augustine was terrified. Marry, find a wife, and live with a girl. Forget it, he was someone who wanted to be with alchemy. Madame Windsor was helpless and just treated it as if he had never interacted with a girl before. But after worrying about her son, she started to worry about her daughter. Because the Rose family was in the limelight recently, many families came to propose marriage, including Miles. When Vanessa heard Miles, her face turned black and she said she wouldn't marry him. Miles was a narrow-minded man, especially when there was no relationship between the two of them and he was jealous. Vanessa saw that her mother seemed interested. She quickly complained, saying that Miles was the one who revealed that her brother was a necromancer and that he had almost killed her brother. When Madame Windsor heard this, she removed this person from her list of son-in-laws. He tricked her son and wanted to marry her daughter. In his dreams, Miles was very satisfied and wanted to be with Vanessa, but he was told that it was impossible. He couldn't accept it at all. He had liked Vanessa for so long and treated her as his. He didn't expect Vanessa to refuse to marry him. No, if she didn't marry him, she couldn't marry anyone else. Miles was too panicked and didn't have any way to get Vanessa's heart, so he could only use this forceful and unreasonable method. But he didn't know that this was even more hopeless. Vanessa was even more ruthless. "Even if I don't marry for the rest of my life, I won't marry you." Miles said, "Let's see who can outlast the other. By then, you'll be an old lady. Let's see who will marry you." Count Windsor, ha! The young man was a little green. Vanessa ignored him completely. She trained with the fire dragon every day. When she went to the Guild of Magic to take the test, she became a 4th-tier fire mage. 4th grade was not bad, especially for female magicians. Generally speaking, if a girl had magical talent, many families would be willing to marry her. Because the parents were magicians, the chances of the next generation having magic talent were higher. After she became a grade 4 magician, more families wanted to marry into the Rose family. The Miles family was no longer enough, and Miles was so angry that he stomped his feet. He probably knew that it was because of Augustine. Who would have known that Augustine was a member of the Rose family? Who the hell knows that Augustine is your brother? Anyone who likes you would definitely explode when they see you walking close to another man. The fact that he didn't kill Augustine was already merciful. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been a chance for your family to reunite. Miles fucking wanted to have sex with Vanessa so that she had no choice but to marry him. Ning Shu was just a bystander, so he felt that it was very interesting. Vanessa didn't like Miles, so even if this old lady didn't want to marry him, she wouldn't marry him. He didn't know what kind of wife Augustine would marry in the future. Mission complete. Do you want to leave the mission world? Ning Shu didn't have time to reply before Ning Shu was pulled away. Ning Shu, then what are you asking me for? Returning to the system space, Ning Shu let out a sigh of relief. He thought that he would hear the alarm for 2333. He laid on the sofa and opened his status panel to look at the mission completion rate. Name, Ning Shu H, 27 level, Super Mission Taker Points card, 382 plus 20, 10 million points per card. Soul value, 34 plus 2 health, 30 plus 2 wisdom, 36 plus 2 luck, 36 plus 2 charm, 29 plus 2 mental strength, 40 plus 2 force, 35 plus 2 talent, 38 plus 2 faith, 6,0009, for 94 plus 15,000 merit, 1800, 000/5,000 soul strength, 128 plus 12 authorization ticket, plus 1 pure heart, none law comprehended, water law incarnation, wood law incarnation, space law constructed world, reincarnation world tools, calm halo, calming pill, faith halo, amulet 4, upgraded amulet plus 2 honorary titles, goddess of war, selfless ancestor skills. 5th ring shooting technique, level close combat technique, minor achievement in peerless martial arts, level poison technique, low-level business management knowledge, beginner code programming, beginner lawyer skill, divine master ghost catching skill, beginner cooking skill, level embroidery skill, trash hypnosis halo, mother of the world, queen's blessing, sister model worker, Chen Shi's blessing, leader halo, grass blessing, best friend for life, Meow Meow Meow's blessing, life-saving hand, Zhu Su Su's blessing, founding woman, Chen Ermiai's blessing, beauty-in-law, Chen Ning's blessing, bane of the blood clan, Jasmine's blessing, transcending race communication, Bai Sanyang's blessing, brave heart, Wang Ying's blessing, bloodthirsty tyrant, Anai Bingyan's blessing, heart of peace and joy, luck halo, faith halo, longevity. Fulfill the wish of the client, Vicky. Mission completion rate, 100%. Mission rewards obtained. 20-point cards, 16 attribute points, 60% of soul power, 14,000 faith power, including accumulated in previous worlds, 40% of soul power, and 40% of soul origin. The souls this time were a little less, only 60%. Mission completion rate, 100%. There was probably something that made the client unhappy. Could it be because of the fire dragon? The appearance of the fire dragon broke the relationship between the two of them. But what kind of power could a skeleton have? Or did it let Augustine and Vicky see each other and make Vicky unhappy? When they returned to human society, the difference between Augustine and Vicky was revealed. Augustine was human, but he was a necromancer. He was an anomaly. The client, Vicky, was also an anomaly. The two anomalies supported each other. But now, although Augustine was a necromancer, he was no longer an anomaly. Forget it, a 100% completion rate was also pretty good. There was no such thing as a perfect solution in the world. Ning Shu sat up and began to absorb the soul strength. The soul strength that was taken from him before was too little. He had to make up for it. After absorbing the soul strength, he poured the pure and viscous soul strength on the peerless martial art. The cracks on the surface were getting fewer and fewer. It probably wouldn't take long for it to be as good as new. /BK. Chapter 2681. Ning Shu touched the peerless martial art and felt the vitality coming from the world. He was happy. There were fewer and fewer cracks, and the world was full of vitality. Maybe when the law of nothingness was solved, this world would be able to breed living things. When it was able to connect to the world of reincarnation, there would be no need to find His Excellency and connect to other worlds of reincarnation. Ning Shu was dreaming, but as long as the law of nothingness was not solved, this dream could not be realized. What he urgently needed now was star stones. It did not matter if it was shiny or gray, as long as it was star stones. Well, now there was another channel for star stones, and that was His Excellency. Well, he should be able to buy it from His Excellency. Ning Shu opened the chat system and clicked on His Excellency. The opening line was, "How are the flowers growing recently? Are there any new varieties?" His Excellency liked this. His Excellency replied that it was good and that he planned to experiment with new varieties. Ning Shu did not reply. What new varieties? First he used soul power to water the flowers, then he used corpses. What was he going to use now? Ning Shu quickly changed the topic. Are there any star stones left? I want to buy them. Don't worry, I'll buy them with merit. There were so many skeletons that needed merit. He did not believe that he would complain about having too much merit. His Excellency, no. Ning Shu, I'll buy them with merit. His Excellency, I don't care about these things. There are specialized people to take care of them. You know. Ning Shu, I don't understand. It seemed that His Excellency was still a hands-off boss, but he would not specifically ask for star stones. The world of reincarnation is broken. Who is picking up the trash? I can help you. His Excellency, that is managed by Grand Uncle and the others. I don't care. Ning Shu, what the fuck? He still had to ask Grand Uncle to help him pick up the trash. Ning Shu, why don't you handle it yourself? His Excellency, why should I bother that god? You can help me plant flowers. Ning Shu was exasperated. You should take care of your own world. Why should you let others take care of it? You have to deal with these broken worlds, and I can still pick up the trash behind you. Abyssal Prefect, I'm afraid there's something wrong with your head. Since there was someone who could manage it, why bother? He only needed to manage the souls in the world of reincarnation and suppress the calamity beasts. Was he afraid that he wouldn't die of exhaustion? Ning Shu asked, don't you have any star stones with you? Abyssal Prefect, aren't star stones used to connect planes? They can be recycled, so we don't have them. Ning Shu immediately turned off the chat system. He felt mentally tired. What's with all the yelling? He was so useless that no one wanted him even when he was picking up trash. He wanted to go to the world of reincarnation, but he was afraid that his soul would be contaminated. It would be extremely painful if his soul energy was stripped away. He had to find a way to protect his soul. Ning Shu clicked on the System Exchange store to see if there were any items that could shield him from soul contamination. After rummaging around, he found a tool called the Black Bone Umbrella. It was said that holding the umbrella could effectively protect one's soul from being contaminated. What did the Blackbone umbrella have to do with the Blackbone chicken? It was too expensive. It actually cost 50,000 merit points. Ning Shu had always felt that the system exchange store was a money-grabbing existence. It was like a rogue software that couldn't be removed. Would you buy it or not? The price was so expensive, especially for a newbie who had just completed the mission. He couldn't enter the virtual space, nor could he enter the Law City. If he wanted something, he could only buy it from the exchange store. There was no other way to buy it. A monopoly would produce huge profits. However, Ning Shu still bought it. He couldn't resist the need. He picked a white Blackbone umbrella. The surface of the umbrella was white and there were fine white crystals. It was very small. There were no decorations at all. And the white color was very celestial. He pretended to be a little fairy. The Blackbone umbrella was very light in his hand. After opening the umbrella, Ning Shu clicked on the black hole and went to the world of reincarnation. A touch of light appeared in the gloomy world of reincarnation. The snow-white surface of the umbrella was very bright in the world of reincarnation. Ning Shu didn't know whether the Blackbone umbrella was useful or not. It was necessary to use the umbrella to cover the pollution. The problem was that the pollution didn't fall from the sky like rain. It was omnipresent and pervasive. What was the use of an umbrella? Ning Shu felt that he had been cheated. It was better than nothing. At least it gave him some psychological comfort. Ning Shu went to the side of the reincarnation pool and saw a few skeletons still playing Fight the Landlord. They were playing Fight the Landlord night and day. Were they going to participate in a competition? Fight the Landlord had become a sport. This was really a sport that everyone participated in. There were gold nuggets in front of him. These were all good deeds. Ning Shu quietly walked over. Looking at them playing cards, he asked, "Does your boss know that you guys are gambling like this?" "Beauty. A little gambling is fun. We're just passing time." "Beauty, you've become beautiful again. Is holding an umbrella a new style?" Ning Shu was speechless. They didn't seem reliable. Ning Shu went to the side to ask Li Si. Li Si stayed at the side alone. He didn't mix with these old foxes. "What's the situation?" Ning Shu asked. Li Si shook his head. "Nothing." Did that disaster beast come out? This time, it was still a stickman the size of a finger. He didn't know what it looked like now. Ning Shu hoped that the world of reincarnation could last a little longer. If this world collapsed, then the worlds that were born later would definitely be finished. He thought that after building the world, life would be a smooth road. But the world would have all kinds of problems. He needed to spend a lot of effort to solve the problems. The entire organization existed to protect the billions of worlds. Li Si was very hesitant. Ning Shu asked, "Great Aunt, can I still see the young master?" "You should know the young master." He knew what the young master looked like now, whether it was a man or a woman. Ning Shu shook his head. "I don't know. There are so many souls. There are so many living creatures born every day. I really don't know what your young master's situation is now." It was a big project to find living creatures in the vast universe. Ning Shu really didn't know, and he wasn't sure. Maybe Pai Lupi was reincarnated as a spirit beast or a wild beast. This was completely possible, because Pai Lupi's soul was very polluted. While the pool of reincarnation was removing the soul poison, it would also deprive more of his soul power. When the soul power wasn't enough to become a human, it would reincarnate into other living creatures. Although the heavenly Tao treated all living creatures as dogs, humans were always favored by fate. So, Ning Shu suspected that Pai Lupi might not be human anymore. Thinking back, Pai Lupi was the young master of the Li family. He had everything he wanted. He had a noble status. But he might be reincarnated, or he might not even be human. Indeed, the past was like a cloud of smoke. No one could guarantee what they would become in reincarnation. /BK, you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.